morning, good afternoon, and good evening to the rest of you. We are back for another episode of Bitcoin Magazine Live. It is I, your host Q, coming to you yet again from my mother's basement, and I'm joined by my co-host P. How goes it, P?
Q, I'm so glad you asked. It goes fantastically.
Well, that makes one of us.
Yeah, that was just me wildly overstating my happiness. No, we're doing good. I'm excited for the conversation today. There is a lot that happened over the weekend, and as usual, your hair looks fucking incredible, and I am jealous.
Would you hate me if I told you I woke up like this?
I hope you don't take offense when I say go fuck yourself. Respectfully.
Oh, man. As much as I love talking about my hair and I could give you all of the best hair tips in the world, like feel free to follow me on Twitter for all my latest hair care product updates and tweets. But I want to start, I think.
I'm going to unbutton one more button on my shirt just for this conversation.
Oh, show us that skin, baby.
Here it is.
I want to choose chaos. I want to choose to fight on this show numerous times. And I'll give credit where credit is due. Greg Foss was the one who sort of introduced this idea to me, but the fact that many of the people who run the global economy, run the US economy, have no financial or economics background whatsoever.
What?
And we talk a lot about on this show that Jerome Powell is just a glorified lawyer. His entire financial experience is a 2-year stint working as a merger and acquisition lawyer in the DC area. And eventually his boss just got a job at the Treasury and brought him over. And he's been working for the federal government for almost 20 years now. And while we love to shit on Jerome Powell on this show, you know, you got 3 Americans talking. Shout out to all the Americans who are watching, but also shout out to all of the other fans all around the world. I want to take some time right now to talk about Europe. I'm going to get really angry when I say this because I'm still processing, discovering this information. But as many of you may have seen, Christine Lagarde over the weekend sent some like bullshit tweet like, oh, I got some honorary degree in economics. Yeah. Like, oh, my friend gave it to me. I'm so cool and awesome. So I did like the bare minimum. When I say the bare minimum, I mean, I just looked up Christine Lagarde on Wikipedia. So if the Wikipedia info is incorrect, sue me. Fuck it. I don't care. But this woman's a lawyer and this is her first fucking economics degree. Like, imagine that narrator voice from the Oscars. This is Christine Lagarde's 3rd honorary degree and 1st in economics. Like, that's what this is. This is the first economics degree this woman has, and it's not a real one. And yet she's the one that we trust to tell us what to do with at least with the euro and what Europe's going to do and how they're going to handle things. I call fucking bullshit. All right, we just lost all the children in the audience today. My bad. But I need to stop talking and calm down a little bit. P, Chris, I'd love just initially your thoughts on just realizing that yet another central planner has no financial understanding.
I have 2 thoughts here. The first is that does sound ridiculous on its face. I would like to think that there would be some significant basis of experience for these positions, but I don't actually know Lagarde's like entire career trajectory. I will say I think that traditional degrees are a shitcoin. So there's a world now, you know. Christine Lagarde, notorious cannibal, eater of human children, everything else, and central banker. I would not be surprised if she had 0 experience, 0 qualifications for this job going into it initially when she started this part of her career. But the fact that she doesn't have a 4-year degree doesn't faze me too much, to be honest.
You're muted there,
She does have a 4-year degree. She actually has a master's. Like, she went to law school, but she is, for all intents and purposes, the exact same as Jerome Powell. She's just a lawyer who obeys commands and does what she's told. So I think it's worth highlighting this. I do agree with you, P, that like a traditional degree is a shitcoin. Like, if you ask my college economics professors if Q was going to have even a inkling of an understanding of what the global economic world looked like, they would laugh at you. Like I got a C plus and a C minus in micro and macroeconomics respectively freshman year of college. Like I am not shy about that. But I also recognize probably all of the binge drinking I did during that period of my life didn't help. And all of the books that I've read ever since have helped.
I think what you're saying is you're more qualified than Christine Lagarde to run
I have a
ECB.
degree in finance, and I've said point blank, I am more qualified to be the Fed chair than Jerome Powell. I will, I am not egotistical. I have humility. I am not qualified to be the head of the EU, as I do not hold an EU passport. That is my limitation there. Other than that, though, I am qualified.
I feel like there was a huge asterisk after you said, like, I am a humble man. I feel like it was like, I am a humble man, but also I'm smarter than all of you, and I am a literal wizard. So,
I mean,
die in a fire.
P just in real time admit to not listening to a word I said.
No. No, I didn't, but I respect you for it.
All right, we're going to stop interrupting you, Chris. Please, go ahead.
No worries.
Q&A.
I guess bringing us back on topic to talking about Fed chairs or people that determine monetary policy. I mean, we've hit this nail on the head before that we've hit this head on the nail before that it's ridiculous. And I was trying to think about this, like, oh, I'm going to do 25 basis points, 50 basis points, 75 basis points. I was thinking about this over the weekend. Like, what if Jerome Powell just said, like, tomorrow, like did a Paul Volcker, and for those that don't know, in the 70s, Paul Volcker raised interest rates rapidly to high. What if just Jerome Powell was like, hey, at the next meeting, we're going to raise the monetary policy 25%, not basis points, like 25% to like combat this inflation. It's just how asinine it is. Like right now, Bitcoin is and its current epoch or monetary or the amount of Bitcoin coming on every day is like 900 Bitcoin every day if you're averaging out 10 minutes blocks. But when you do that over a year, it's 1.7% inflation rate. Is that right, P&Q, I believe, per year? Or over the total base, whatever it is. And then, in 2 more years' time, in 2024, we're going to be at half of that. So it'll be what, 0.85 or something like that, somewhere around that range. Yeah, 0.85. So I just think having a consistent monetary base that shows when it's going to be put into existence over just a man or a woman just randomly saying, this is what it's going to be tomorrow is just so crazy. It doesn't make any sense at all. Yeah, I don't know if there's anything you guys want to add to that.
I mean, it kind of begs the question of who really is in charge here? Like who, like we can say that Jerome Powell answers to Joe Biden. I cringe at the thought even, but on paper at least. But like, who are they really reporting to? Because the truth is, at least in America, I don't give a shit what anyone says. I fully point the finger at the Fed and the way they have handled a lot of things. And I'm starting to think a lot of these moves we're seeing are a lot more premeditated. And if they're premeditated and the Fed is going out of their way to cause a recession, knowing that they are going to cause a recession to accomplish whatever they see fit, while the narrative that they put out is different, like, you can't get on a stand and lie. You can lie to the media. Like you can, but there's no accountability as a byproduct. So who is the one holding these people accountable, i.e. who are they reporting to? Because I think we deserve to know that. But I don't know. It's Monday. I might still be high from last night. Who knows?
I think it is worth going through the news of the weekend. Q, as I understand it, some of the fundamental expectations of Bitcoiners, we're going to be talking about this in about 2 blocks, that's 20 minutes, with American HODL and Brad Mills, but some of the models that some of the sacred cows that people have been holding in Bitcoin have been blown out of the water. Should we go into some of that? I mean, what happened with the price? Tell us what happened.
I plead the fifth. No. We'll dive into this. So what we have on the screen is the stock to flow, but essentially what P is alluding to is the fact that we did undercut 20,000. So if you were able to stack some heavy sats between, 18,000 and 20,000, good on you. I was stacking heavy at a family party while everyone in the room was laughing at me. And then I convinced my best friend to go ahead and throw another $100 down. So we're in this together, Avid. We're going down with the ship if it goes down.
Come on, man. The ship is not going down.
The ship is not going down. The ship is not going down.
How dare you even say that? Put that in the universe.
I want to
touch know about
on,
chakras and shit?
I want to touch on this chart because, I brought it up on this show last week. I still believe stock to flow is very valid. I think that while this model and this version of it, even by Plan B, who created this, has come out to say, like, what I intended to make here isn't working, so, like, I'm going to throw it out. That's like the creators of Viagra being like, hey, this doesn't actually help with the heart problems we thought it was going to help, so we're not going to use it. Like, imagine the millions of men who would have never gotten laid again if they did that. So the reason I say this is we're starting to see a lot of technical analyst experts, myself included, but not in this pool, but technical analyst, self-proclaimed technical analyst expert. Many like me have gone to Twitter and saying, oh, stock to flow. Chris, does a cursor come up if you hover it over the most recent? Go all the way to where the current price is. Yeah. So it's just broken out through this like light blue shaded area. And so based on that, this is supposed to be the nail in the coffin. Oh, the model is dead. It's obsolete. We can't use it. It's over. Now let's go. We don't even need to go all the way back. Just go to that 2017 peak and let's just zoom in there and you see, oh, it actually did above on the upside. Just a little bit. But we didn't kill stock to flow then, did we? Pete, you have to correct me here because this is when I started to really pay attention to Bitcoin. So
I think the point that you're making.
Well, I have not made my point. I'm going long in the tooth here, Pete.
Let me stop you right
Answer
there.
the question. Answer the question.
Wait, what was the question? I'm sorry.
Was stock to flow deemed dead at the end of 2017 during this initial run up to 20K?
So the important thing here is that stock to flow.
So that's no.
Wait, hold on. It didn't exist at that point.
Okay. Oh.
So stock to flow is a newer thing. And now, it is possible that I am wrong here, but I am fairly certain that stock to flow was. Actually, I should know this off the top of my head. I believe stock to flow came into existence after the last. I think it was during the last bear market, but it certainly didn't exist during the peaks. And so the argument is that basically it is a model that was created kind of post hoc, and it was touted as being an extremely accurate measure. And I think it was very effective kind of PR, but there wasn't anyone around. It didn't exist at that point. So there wasn't anybody to say like, oh, it's broken to the upside.
I mean, so understanding that I think helps better gauge as to why. All right. Thank you, Chris. It was February, March of 2019. It looks like when the original article was published. And to P's point, like this took a bunch of data from the past and made it make sense. But it assumes that pattern, whatever pattern existed, will continue to be replicated in the future. And that's a huge assumption in my opinion, at least. But the larger assumption here is it's only protected on the downside. So if we break on the downside unexpectedly, the model is obsolete. But if we break on the upside, that's fine. That is literally like, tell me you don't know how to understand models any more than just by saying something like that. Oh, you can't get a negative error, but you can get a positive error. I'm sorry, but if your model comes out with a negative error, you did something wrong with the model. So I'm not buying this narrative that, oh, it's broken on the downside, therefore it's obsolete. It could very well be obsolete, but that's not the reason why.
Interesting.
All right. Thanks, P. I feel like I'm getting ready to fight a prize fighter now all of a sudden.
You about to get fucked up, but that's okay. That's okay. Yeah, I mean, I think it's very safe to say that the S2F model is dead. Now, I think the larger point, what you're saying is, you're trying to make, which is just because a model does not 100% track on the sort of predicted outcome, that's okay. I think that's not a crazy point to make. I think that's valid.
I think what we're seeing though is like we're seeing models get thrown out, and that's not just like, look, well, we're going to talk a lot about this with our guests today, so I don't want to like take away from that conversation and put it here. But the real point I'm trying to make is like, just because a model doesn't give you the output that you want doesn't necessarily negate it. It doesn't mean, oh, it's over because I didn't get the result that I was looking for. Like,
Of course.
how fucking egotistical do you have to be? So we talk about the volatility of Bitcoin all the time. If you can't handle the downside volatility, you don't deserve the upside. Like, if you can't handle a model giving you information that you're not comfortable absorbing, you don't get to use the model just when it adheres to what you believe. Like, that's cherry picking.
Let's wait until American HODL enters the ring before we dive into this, because I think he's going to have some interesting things to say. Let's take some time to go through the news of the weekend. Obviously, we broke the sacred cow, broke the back of the previous all-time high. This is something that a lot of Bitcoiners, myself included, thought was not going to happen. This doesn't change the fundamental aspects of Bitcoin. I am honestly as bullish as I have ever been. This is, we talked about this all the way down, this represents a generational buying opportunity. And I was talking with some family members over the weekend, and they were like, "Oh my gosh, this is terrible. Like, shouldn't I have my money in something else?" And I was like, "Look, where else would you put your assets? Like, what magical thing exists that has a better risk reward ratio? What more positively asymmetrical bet could you possibly make? You're going to keep your money in US dollars?" And that there isn't one, as far as I can tell. If there is, I'd love to hear about it. But go ahead, Q.
Take a long slated bet. Next season's NBA champions, Los Angeles Lakers.
All right. You know what?
I'm just saying, if you bet on the Warriors a year ago, that was the best financial decision you could have made. Like, everything else deflated down. Everything else lost its value except for that bet slip.
Fair enough. What else happened this weekend? Let's give the high-level summary of news and what's going on in the Bitcoin world before we dive into our next
I've got one thing real quick. I know CZ is the guy that runs Binance, one of the largest exchanges in the world. A reporter, I forget what it was. I don't know if it was Cointelegraph or Coin Market Cap.
Did you just call it Corn Telegraph? Because that is what they should change their name to.
That's what they should change their name to, honestly. But they misreported that 100,000 Bitcoins were bought up by Binance, but he actually corrected them in a tweet saying that this is just showing inflows to an address that they hold of a bunch of Bitcoin. So that basically means 100,000 Bitcoin was inflowing into Binance, not necessarily sold or bought or anything. It just, she thought that meant that they were buying because it went to their address, but it was just like they were consolidating UTXOs, and it was just a bunch of people that were putting their money onto Binance, and it was one of the cold wallets that they held, and it was just an address that, I don't know if it was reused, but basically they're like, it looks like Binance just bought a bunch of it. They're like, no, those are just customer funds all in one wallet or one address, basically. So very interesting.
Yeah, and if I'm understanding correctly, this happens a lot, right? You hear on-chain statistics of like, oh my gosh, this many Bitcoins, or this much Bitcoin is moving off of this exchange, or moving onto this exchange. And the reality is, a lot of times, it's being misinterpreted. This is just the movement of Bitcoin from one place to another, or from a place where it is visible to a place where it is not, and it does not represent the information that's being reported, or rather the interpretation that is being delivered in whatever news source you're referring to.
And sometimes when the mempool clears out, exchanges will literally transfer from a multitude of addresses to one address to consolidate UTXOs. It's basically like instead of having 10 $1 bills, you have one $10 bill. And it's easier to consolidate them when the fees are cheap in the mempool. And then it makes when you want to spend that much cheaper because it's one large data chunk instead of multiple. So, yep, exactly to your point. You see this happen a lot with exchanges, like moving things around. Go ahead, Q.
I'm also curious, and you two maybe can chime in better here. I used to actually very foolishly hold like the number of Bitcoin on exchanges to have some sort of like heavier value than I think it genuinely should. And one of the best sort of advice I got on this, or just thoughts on this, was, well, it's a good thing Bitcoin is open 24 hours a day because that number can literally change in 10 minutes. So I'm curious if either of you guys actually think how many Bitcoins are on exchanges, given the conversations that we're seeing around, the Bitcoin space right now and the real motivation and push to tell people get your Bitcoin off of these exchanges. Don't just have it blindly on some random app or whatever, like hold it yourself. How much weight do you guys put on the number of Bitcoin that's just sort of out in the ethos, if you will?
I'm gonna be honest, I'm not quite tracking on the question. When you say how much weight do I put, like, what do you mean?
Like, do you care? Does it make you uncomfortable if that number were to shift to the upside or downside?
Yeah. I mean, exchanges are a type of layer 2 technology. That is to say, there's something that is built on top of base layer Bitcoin. They keep their own order. They keep their own books. They keep their own ledgers. And if you have your Bitcoin on an exchange, what that means is that you've put your Bitcoin with them and you are trusting them to keep track of it for you and to give it back to you when you ask. And as we saw with Celsius, that is not an expectation that you can rely on 100% of the time. This is not the first time that an exchange has blown up. Mt. Gox is another very, very famous example in the Bitcoin space of an exchange that went belly up. I believe people are still waiting to get their Bitcoin back from Mt. Gox. If I'm wrong, apologies if that has happened, but I'm 99% sure that it has absolutely not. And now, Celsius is a category of exchange that also offers, quote unquote yield. And, Bitcoiners who, dyed-in-the-wool Bitcoiners have been yelling about this entire cycle, that putting money in yield earning products is essentially picking up pennies in front of the steamroller. You're trusting someone else to keep track of and give you back when you want it, the most precious asset that has ever been invented. And that just has, for me, always seemed like an untenable risk. When somebody tells you like, oh yeah, you just give me your Bitcoin and then you're going to earn 20% or 10% yield on it. That doesn't just come out of nowhere. There isn't, like, if it seems too good to be true, it is. They were rehypothecating your Bitcoin. They were lending it out to people. They were taking really risky bets on it. I'm talking about Celsius. And that's a real problem. Even if there are exchanges that are extremely trustworthy, and there are many of them, or I don't say many, there are some very notable Bitcoin exchanges that are doing right by all of the people that custody with them. You're still exposing yourself to what I would consider to be unacceptable third-party risk, because exchanges are still beholden to the federal government. And if, the federal government says to a licensed exchange, like, hey, you know what, you're going to spend the rest of your life in jail if you do not seize these funds, then I would expect any rational human being to do so. So the whole point of Bitcoin, as I've been, saying, I was going to say too many times, but I don't think it's possible to say this too many times. Bitcoin is about many things, but one of the really important tenets of it is radical personal financial responsibility. And if you do not hold your own private keys, if you do not take possession of this bearer asset, then you don't actually own your Bitcoin. You have an IOU, and you are relying on someone else to make good on that IOU. And in the past, there were assets that took a lot of money, like gold. You had to pay for, security and a lot of other stuff to keep track of it and make sure it was safe. Bitcoin is revolutionary for a number of reasons, but one of those reasons is that you can take custody of your private keys, and no one can take that from you easily. I mean, certainly they can beat the shit out of you unless you can make a decision to give it to them, but take possession of your keys, not your coin. It's super important. And also, as I said last time we were talking, I'm sorry, I'm going on a bit of a rant here, but it is also very important that when you do that, you do it when you are ready to. Do not just hear this message and go, oh my God, I got to get my money off the exchange, and then fuck it up and lose your Bitcoin. You need to go through the incredible resources that have been created by the community. There are many of them. And, as I said last week, when I first did this, I fucking created a wallet. I took my seed phrase, I wrote it down, I stamped it in metal, I erased my wallet, I restored my wallet, I sent myself a test transaction, I sent myself another one, I sent it back to the exchange. I spent hours just making sure that I felt really comfortable with it. And that is extremely important because there are no backsies with Bitcoin, which is another one of the most amazing things about it. But if you fuck it up, no one can reverse that transaction. So take appropriate steps, learn the information. There are incredible resources out there, and take possession of your own future. NPSA. Roll the clip.
Well said. I got one more, and then should we bring on, or do we want to bring on HODL right now?
Let's bring on HODL right now. You think?
Ooh, let's fucking go.
All right.
We'll go into commercials, and then we'll bring him in.
Okay, so we're going to go to commercials. Stick around. American HODL will be joining us, and then
there's still two more stories that I'll throw out there, but we could just do those with HODL too.
Yeah, that
Love
works.
it.
All right.
All right.
We'll be back in a sec, guys. Stick around.
What is up, guys? Welcome back, and we are now joined. I don't even want to do the intro because I won't do it justice. P, who are we talking to now?
You may have heard the term, you may have heard of the painting, American Gothic. That painting was actually named after our next guest, who traveled into the future to protect the past and also our future. We've got American HODL joining us, creator of so many memes, Rapscallion, Bitcoin 2022 speaker. HODL, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, friends. How's it going?
It's going well.
Hello.
How am I positioned in frame?
I do have to admit, the job title of Rapscallion on the B22 list of speakers was probably my favorite. I need to get a career in rapscallionry.
On BitBlock Boom's speaker list, I had Gary Wright. American HODL is a dude who has 6.15 Bitcoin. That's my qualifications, bitch. That's all I need.
It is all you need. For those that don't know, American HODL created the 6.15 meme and many others.
By the way, people have been asking me, a lot during the last few months, like, HODL, what's the new number? What's the new stacking goal? It's It's still 6.15. Have you not checked the price? Like, come on, you can still do 6.15.
It's more relevant than ever today.
Exactly.
We kind of
Exactly.
shifted to like, just a whole coiner, like just get that whole coin. And now, if you like Bitcoin at 69,000, great number, by the way, you should like it even more at this price because you can actually stack that mythical 6.15.
I feel like, listen, there's a lot of people out here driving $40,000 cars. Okay. So if you can have a $40,000 fucking car, you can have 2 Bitcoin. Get a second one. Get your Bitcoin a friend. You know what I mean? Come on.
As someone who lives with his parents and doesn't have a car in the city of Los Angeles, let me tell you, this weekend of trying to like, what can I sell? My girlfriend was really mad when I suggested the dog.
Dogs are
By
so
the
fun.
way, Q, were you at the beefsteak in LA?
In LA, oh, the one with Andy at
Yeah.
Andy's place. I unfortunately couldn't make it. I had a family commitment that night.
Oh, lame. I was there. Yeah.
So I was fucking around and giving a joke answer. How would you describe yourself? What's the intro that you would give yourself?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm literally just a dude who hodls Bitcoin. It's not like a better descriptor. I'm not trying
Don't
to be
need
a
more than that, man.
think boy or whatever. Like, I have some thoughts, I have some strong opinions. I'm just a random dude. I like to talk shit. I like to hodl Bitcoin. End of list, you know?
I want to throw out the first thing we talked about to HODL and get his reaction before we get to the part of this conversation where HODL's going to be like, "You're a fucking idiot, Q," and I lost all respect that I gained for you in this very short time. I've actually never met you, never talked to you. Super excited, big fan of your work.
Thanks, man.
I'm going to start with something that, like, let's memify this shit. So Christine Lagarde has never received an economics degree until this weekend. You laugh, but I'm dead fucking serious. This honorary degree bullshit is her first economics degree. But sure, like, let's trust her to run the European banks.
I also think when you refer to her, you should refer to her as convicted criminal Christine Lagarde, because that's what she is. I mean,
What was she convicted for? How did this not come up in background? I need an assistant.
Yeah, now you're gonna ask me now. Now I can't remember some fraud thing. As an American, I'm very xenophobic to European affairs. I'm like, oh, whatever. Who knows what's going on over there?
Oh, I think I've pulled it up. She was accused over Bernard Tapie fraud in 2013.
Sounds about right.
Yeah,
Pretty sure she was convicted for it, but
Yeah,
she
she
got like
was.
slap on the wrist.
Yeah, she was convicted. I forget. I don't know the exact specifics either, but she basically, as I understand it, was convicted of. Oh, there it is. She did some shady shit and got her friends paid a bunch of money. And then,
Yeah, but you're high up in the European Union, you're protected or whatever, right?
Exactly.
So it's like,
so they were like,
she's still running shit to this day.
The IMF board said it had full confidence in her leadership. That was a quote from that article.
There you go.
Yeah, man,
Honestly, I wish I could just blindly like say like, yeah, sure, go ahead. I don't give a fuck. Just take the economy. We're good. It's like that meme where the guy is celebrating at the Olympics and you find out he's third place, which honestly valid because at least he got on the podium. Second place is always the one that's pissed.
Yeah, I think people like Lagarde or like Powell to a lesser degree. I consider Powell smarter than Lagarde, but I think they're
interesting.
They're what's known as a steady hand, right? Like they're put there because the people in power, in real power, know that they can count on them to do the wrong thing, right? And so that's basically like why they're there in the first place. They know they're going to do what they want them to do. Otherwise, you don't get the nomination, right? You're not going to be elected to that position.
I get that. I'm curious though. Why do you hold Powell to a lesser degree to that? Powell, for all intents and purposes, has just been a government stooge for 20 years.
I've talked about this before. I think it's the same system of selective pressures. I also don't think that we should hold ourselves above, people like Jerome Powell. I think if you were sitting in Jerome Powell's chair, you would probably have the same incentives and you would act in the exact same manner. You would comport yourself the same way, right? So it's like, it's really, humans are emergent properties of the systems in which they inhabit, and no one is better than their incentives, right? If your incentive is to do the wrong thing, you're probably going to do the wrong thing.
Yeah, I think that's a really important Really important point. It's easy to kind of alienate and otherize everyone who is not following one's own personal dogma, but it's not as realistic and effective as actually acknowledging that the incentives drive the outcome.
I think this is a great opportunity for me to announce my candidacy for the next Fed chair, because I do believe that I could have run the country better than Jerome Powell. But I'm just that asshole.
I disagree with you, my friend. Who knows?
We talked about this, HODL. I don't know if you overheard, but given the fact that I have an undergraduate degree in finance, that I barely maintain above a 3.0. I think I got a 3.2 in college. That alone has me as more qualified to run the Federal Reserve than Jerome Powell and his extensive law background and law degrees.
I mean, it only makes sense, right? You could probably run one of Solana's DAOs.
For sure. You at least would be qualified.
You don't even need a GED for that. You know what I mean?
Wait, can we talk fuck Solana first off, but I do want to talk about the absurdity of what happened. Did you guys see this over the weekend?
Right. Well, it's like, I mean, to me, it was like, what's the big gotcha news headline that Solana is centralized? Like, yeah, no shit. Like, file that under no shit. We knew that the whole time, you know?
I mean, it's just funny that like people thought, oh, it's like this is going to be a tried and true fair election process, and then boom, no, the person with 1 million fucking tokens voted 1 million times for themselves. No shit.
It's literally how it works, though, right?
That's how it works. That's how the system is set up, you know?
But hey, proof of stake, man.
Okay, wait. So I have an important question for you, HODL, and then I want to dive into your thoughts on just the psychology that everyone is experiencing, the types of how one's outlook on the Bitcoin space changes as you go through these cycles. So the question is marry, fuck, kill, Lagarde, Yellen, Powell, and I'm going to throw a wild card in there, Carstens.
Okay, wait. Now I have a fourth option though.
That's right.
There's only marry someone twice. Is this
no? You only get to choose the three. So marry, fuck, kill of those four options.
But I have to choose Carstens for. Now I'm confused. You threw a whole. This is
You have. I'm trying to make it easier for you because this is an impossible question, obviously. Yeah. I'm going to give you the number of a suicide hotline afterwards. After you have to think about it too much, but you have four options and you have to choose three of them.
Oh, okay. I can. It's a pool. Okay.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's like a DAO. You know.
I'm going to kill. I'm going to kill Carstens. You know. By the way, if you're from an intelligence agency, this is a joke. This is a game. It's theoretical. I was asked a question. Okay. How can I actually kill that man? Second of all, I think you got to fuck Lagarde, right? Like straight up. There's some vibes there, bro. Like, I mean, I don't know. Like she looks like she's down to clown. Next up, you got to marry Powell because he's got access to the biggest money printer on earth. And then Yellen, I don't know. Yellen reminds me of like Danny DeVito in Batman Returns. Like she looks like a penguin. Like I'm not. Put that aside. Like I don't even want to look at her. You know what I mean? So she's not part of my pool. You know.
You're definitely not signing that prenup when you marry Powell, though.
Well said. Yeah, Yellen gets the bag over her head for sure.
I mean, I would just be like, Daddy Jerome, can you print me $1 trillion billion, please? Thank you. I'm going shopping.
I just want to buy some more Bitcoin with it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I wanted a bag. I just really want a Birkin. Can I have $1 trillion for that, please? You know, inflation. It's up 8.6.
Dude.
Okay.
I was having this conversation with my dad last night over Father's Day dinner. Happy belated Father's Day to you, Mr. HODL.
Much appreciated.
And we were talking about like just a fish taco place that he likes to go to for lunch sometimes. And he was like, dude, 2 months ago, I paid $8. I just went yesterday and I paid $13. And they still have the audacity to tell us that inflation is, it's 8.6% right now. It's like, it's really not. It's an average of a bunch of things that come out to 8.6. But that's why you're seeing over 100% inflation on your gas price. Like, holy shit. I filled up my dad's Suburban. Half a tank was over $100 yesterday at Costco, no less. So,
yeah.
Sorry, mini rant. Had to do it. Had to say it. Also, okay. I wanted to be the one to wish you a happy Father's Day and not pee.
Appreciate it.
You beat me to it, and I resent you for it.
Can I pull up the inflation chart from everywhere around the world?
Go for it. We can just have it.
I'm just going to keep going down this. So, Chris, this would be the global central bank policy rate.
So wait. While we pull that up,
Yep.
HODL, I wanted to ask you. We've been talking on Clubhouse all weekend, right? Obviously, the price dipped. What was the low?
17.6.
17.6.
Yeah.
So yeah, 17.6. I definitely felt that in my nethers. And
Oh yeah. No, the Bitcoin price was so low. Like, it needs to call me and apologize for hurting my feelings. Like, if we're gonna have a relationship going forward, like that's how low it was. It was like, how could you do this to me?
Yeah, I felt the same way. I felt attacked, offended, betrayed.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, how are you thinking about this? How did that affect you?
So around, like, when we didn't hold like 25 to 26 as the low, I knew we were gonna break below 20. Like, you could just feel it. And I was like, when we break below 20, it's gonna be kind of a ceremonial killing of the sacred cow, because effectively, like, with the inflation rate where it is and like the expansion in M2, we were already above the 2017, or sorry, we were already below the 2017 all-time high. And usually in prior cycles, like, we've gotten 2-3x above prior all-time highs. So we weren't even close to 2-3x above prior all-time highs. So it was sort of a formality at some point that we were going to fall below 20. And when we did fall below 20, I think it was actually like, I was watching what was happening with the other Bitcoiners, and there was certainly a lot of pain, because a lot of people thought this can never happen. And it's just like, listen, man, if you've ever seen that Weimar chart, I think Gigi was posting it 2 days ago, that's the story you're living through. And there's a lot of volatility in that chart. And I think one of the things I sort of intuited over the last few days is, like, for us to reach $1 million Bitcoin, we have to stomach more volatility, not less. And so I think this, like, Michael Saylor driven narrative of, like, the volatility is going down, I think is bullshit. I think the volatility is going up, or, it's remaining constant, but the fluctuations are greater, which feels the same, like, emotionally. And also, like, there's this thing about, like, when I was 25 and I first found Bitcoin, and I certainly allocated a lot of money to it for being 25, and, like, we all had a good belief in it, but it wasn't our whole world, it wasn't our whole life. And now, all my friends are Bitcoiners. We, like, a lot of people work in the industry. Look at you guys, like, you're all in on this thing. People are levered on top of Bitcoin, both with their social life, their career aspirations, their personal wealth, their family fortune, everything. It's all in. So, like, when you get a correction, it's going to feel devastating emotionally. And you just have to sort of steel yourself for that psychologically and just push through and be like, listen, did anything fucking change fundamentally with Bitcoin? No. And this narrative around, like, the shitcoin stuff of, like, the cascading liquidations in DeFi land, like, the fuck do you care? You knew that was going to happen. If you're, like, a smart Bitcoiner with your head on your shoulders, you should have known that DeFi was daisy chained together and that eventually it would collapse. I mean, certainly I've been telling people that for 2 fucking years, 3 years, like, since DeFi summer. And so it was obvious it was going to come at some point. That has nothing to do with the Bitcoin price. Maybe there's some extra special pain associated with it, like a few percentage points. Maybe there's a 10% lower correction because of, the DeFi ecosystem collapsing or whatever. But really, this is about the Fed, and this is about interest rates, and this is about, the Fed trying to create demand destruction. They're trying to fuck up the wealth effect, drive people back to work, get a labor surplus. And so, you're living in a macro environment, because Bitcoin's a large macro asset now, fastest ever asset to $1 trillion. And, like, this is big boy shit. We're in the big boy leagues. Put on your big boy fucking pants and stop crying in your goddamn cereal. You know what I mean?
Do you think you brought up leverage, and I'm genuinely interested if you think leverage had an impact on the height Bitcoin was able to reach during this most recent bull run?
Before you answer that, HODL, I want to welcome our second contender, Brad Mills. Welcome to the stage. Thank you for joining us.
Hello.
Bradley Mills.
Is this thing on?
It is. You look like you're in sort of like a low rent, low budget, like phantom zone. What's going on?
Yeah, I got a loan from Richard Hart, and all the the high tech, high brand stuff's coming. It's just stuck in customs.
It's a sick burn, bro.
He's sending me all his extra purses and tracksuits. So you just got this for now.
I'll take it. You heard the last few minutes of HODL eloquently giving his thoughts. We're just talking about the what happened over the weekend, market psychology, how Bitcoiners are thinking about this, and the narratives that are developing. So feel free to jump in at any time. View this more as a clubhouse style conversation, which is to say all of us talking over each other.
Okay, absolutely not. Shut the fuck up, Pete. Do not talk over each other. This is not Clubhouse.
Like, do whatever you want. Do not listen to my co-host. Do whatever the fuck you
do
want.
not do that.
All right. But yeah, man. Welcome to the conversation. HODL. Q just asked you a question.
Oh,
Q,
yeah, last week. But yeah, so I don't think leverage is a big part of the Bitcoin story. Certainly the bears are coming out saying shit like that now. They always say shit like that, though. It's like, you only got here because of Tether. It's like, come on. We got here because people believe in Bitcoin. People are choosing to allocate to Bitcoin. Tesla put Bitcoin on its balance sheet. Like, there was, a lot of positive momentum. We were in a strong bull market. And I think that leverage certainly has some, force to play in the Bitcoin story. Unfortunately, one of the greatest sins is that we're all extremely bullish on Bitcoin, probably to our detriment at some point. And if you're a weak bull, if you're a bull who's so bullish that you put yourself in a leverage position when you're about to blow up, unfortunately, you actually become a bear because you're a forced seller at the fucking bottom, and then you drive the price lower, right? So it's not a good position to be in if you can't stomach it. You know what I mean? If you can stomach the margin calls, like, just know that there's a potential for them, and be prepared for what's coming, because whatever you think Bitcoin can't go to, whatever number you think, it'll never do that, it will. Like, Bitcoin will cause the most pain to the most amount of people for the most amount of time, and only the strong fucking survive. So if you're left standing at the end, you're one of the chosen ones, the few, the proud, the brave. You know what I mean? If not, nice knowing you. Like, you're not meant for this life, baby. Get out while you can. Sell now. Sell today.
Sell it to me. I'll buy your discount on sale. I mean, Bitcoin on discount. No one will give you a better rate than me, I promise. Brad, you missed my mini rant on, I don't really feel like attacking Lagarde anymore, but on inflation. Chris, can we pull up that chart now? So what we have here on the screen that you guys can see very, very difficultly, but a lot easier if you just zoom in on your own. Thank you, Chris. So there is country, the rate, there's a central bank rate as of today. And then right next to it is the CPI year over year. And what you're essentially seeing with this is, as you go down the list, the countries just have a higher and higher rate. It's not a perfect direct correlation, but in my opinion, it is strong enough to say, as these rates are going up, you're also seeing the inflation number go up. Let's play a little cause and effect here. Chicken and the egg. What are you guys accounting for coming first here? Was it the inflation that came first and then these higher rates, or was it this fear of higher rates that inevitably led to inflated prices?
I'll throw my hat in the ring. I think the inflation was before the rates, and then the rates are a reactionary response by the Fed to try and stem inflation, and they're caving to political pressure, and that's why you're seeing what you're seeing right now.
Brad,
what do you think?
I think that the real rate that we should pay attention to is the rate of increase of asset prices, and the CPI inflation numbers seem to be like a lagging effect of destruction of the monetary supply, like debasement of the money supply. And it's hard to figure out what causes what, especially in a Bitcoiner in Bitcoin, because as a Bitcoiner, we come into this usually from the rabbit hole of gold bugs or libertarians or whatever, and we're just taught that the Fed prints the money and that's Fed money printer go burr, and that's the problem, and Bitcoin solves this. And it's only until you start to really dig into like what's happening globally and how money supply actually increases and what money really is that I find that it's a lot more of like a long-term thing. Like all the people that are saying, well, the Fed is in charge right now and it's, the markets are crashing because the Fed is trying to roll off the balance sheet and raise interest rates. I feel like that's just short-sighted. It's just like HODL says this in Clubhouse all the time. It's just like astrology for men, like technical analysis is just astrology for men. Well, I think all these Fed watcher people are just like playing that same game of like astrology for macro board people or whatever. Like, I really don't think the Fed is the reason why like the markets are crashing. I think it's just a symptom of the markets were due for a correction and a crash because central banks over time keeping interest rates low, artificially keeping interest rates low, has allowed asset bubbles to inflate. And now we're seeing a symptom of that combined with craziness in the world in the macro picture with the Russia-Ukraine war, with the struggle between China and the United States and Russia's dominance for what the next 100 years of global superpower, how that's going to shake out. That's causing supply chain disruptions that are exogenous to whatever the Fed can do to try to control the short-term interest rates. The Fed's not going to be able to do anything when it comes to like fixing the supply chain issues that are happening between this like global struggle of control over global reserve currency status, global reserve asset status. So I think it's more important to just watch the macro geopolitical picture and then recognize that there's massive inflationary pressures because of the disruption of supply chains. It was for the last 50 years, I guess more than that, but since Bretton Woods, we've had this paradigm where the United States has been basically keeping everybody's supply chains moving and securing the global supply trade routes and allowing countries to access the United States' massive, booming economy. And we're kind of entering into this new paradigm where the United States is not effectively able to project that threat into the world. Like you're seeing like sovereigns getting their assets seized, and it's chaos, it's volatility. It's not the same status quo as it was before. So I think that is also just as important to follow than, in terms of CPI inflation, than what the central banks are doing. Like it's two pretty wild things that are happening right now that I think is Ray Dalio's got the right picture. If you watch his latest video, Principles for a Changing World Order, he put out this 45-minute, really highly well-produced video that talks about these issues of what happens through history when the paradigm shifts, when the global reserve currency changes. And we're in this paradigm now where the dollar as the global reserve currency and the U.S. Treasury as the world's reserve asset is on the decline. It's not like it's irreversible, but there is this, I think, a balkanization of global reserve status. And I think Bitcoin is going to play a major role in that next phase of what the global reserve asset and global reserve currency is going to be. I'm not like one of the people, I used to be one of the people that's like, Bitcoin's going to be the global reserve currency. But more so now, I think Bitcoin's just going to play a role over the next decade, an increasing role as a reserve asset, like, a post-trust reserve asset.
Like, if I'm understanding that correctly, Brad, you're talking something to the tune of like a basket of possible goods or assets that could all be shared or used depending on each country's risk appetite, if you will. Like some country will have gold and Bitcoin.
Yeah. Like some countries most of the global trade actually is settled in U.S. Treasuries. If you actually like boil it down, because the dollar is pretty much backed by U.S. Treasuries as the deepest, most liquid, trusted reserve like asset in the world. And as that kind of becomes more Ponzi-esque, like there's $30 trillion of debt, the debt just keeps growing. The Federal Reserve owns $9 trillion of I think it's 9 trillion. Our government GSEs and the Fed own, I think, 11 trillion of the debt. So Social Security and other government arm's length entities, they own so much of the debt that 9 trillion is going to mature over the next 2 years. There's 9 trillion of the 30 trillion going to mature. Somebody's got to buy that. And, you know, we're starting to see a reduction in demand for MBS, like mortgage-backed securities. We're seeing like a bit of a stagnation in demand for treasuries by the people that would buy $9 trillion. Like, that's a lot of money. And, you know, obviously with the way things are going, the Fed's going to have to buy it. Like, I don't understand where the demand is going to come from. And if it's the Fed buying that maturing debt, because they have to issue new debt, we all know they're not going to like let the balance sheet roll off and not issue new debt. They have to keep funding the government. So they're going to issue more debt, and 9 trillion is a lot over the next 2 years. So it's going to be central banks, like it's going to be the Fed buying it basically. So that's kind of like Ponzi-esque.
So like when do we start to hear about possible salary cuts from the federal government? I'm just spitballing here on ways we could save some money, and I feel like paying all 200 and plus, or how many members of Congress are there? 500, right? Something like 500. Each of them make a 6-figure salary. I'm just saying, yeah, okay, fine, 50 million is not that much, but I'm just saying.
Yeah. Bitcoin Tina has a great idea that I'm a fan of, which is I think we should actually give them more money. We should give them more discretionary income. And then we should create like a country club for them where there's like hookers and cocaine, and then they just go there and they don't do any they don't put laws on the books. They stay at the night.
So just do what they do now.
Extract the club. Yeah, and like it's got everything a congressman could want. It's got like you can bribe people. You know what I mean? You
This is literally just what they do now. Just
we're gonna make it a yeah.
Okay, got it.
We'll call it the meat verse.
By the way, I pretty much agree with most of the things Brad said about the macro environment. I also think like the Fed put is still in place, and you know it's possibly lower because they're trying to you know chisel down the CPI, but it's still there. And at some point, like the Fed will reverse course. The everything bubble is not popped. It's just my like there's this thing of like metaphorical truth and actual truth, and I think Bitcoiners are really good at finding out the metaphorical truth, which is like money printer go burr. But when you dig into the actual truth of like how the Eurodollars system works, you know what I mean? Like things get really complicated, and if we're being honest with ourselves, like we're all fucking really stupid about it, and we don't know what we're talking about. And we're trying to figure it out, and the game's being played at a higher level than I think we realized. But the metaphorical truth of like, there's going to be increasing monetary stimulus, and there will be increasing volatility and liquidity crunches along the way. I think that's real. That's happening. And there's nothing that can stop that. But what that means in practical terms, if you're a Bitcoin hodler, is that, you know, there's going to be a lot of emotional volatility along the way for you to get there, right? And so you basically just have to like steel your resolve and practice stoicism, because it's going to be a bumpy fucking ride. Like when Powell is out there saying we're going to have a soft-ish landing, that means I'm about to bring the plane down fucking hard as shit. Prepare yourself, you know? And that's what they're doing now.
Yeah, like we all thought a year ago that we could see this happening. We could see that if they were going to try to raise interest rates and roll off the balance sheet, you know, do a stop QE, raise the interest rates and disinflate the bubble instead of popping the bubble, then it was going to cause massive pain, and it was going to be a pop in the housing market. We just all thought that they wouldn't do this. We all thought that they would, because they're caught between the rock and the hard place where they gotta make the political decision to ruin people financially.
Well, I think one of the things
continue the crazy money printing, which is going to ruin the bottom 50%, like in terms of wealth.
I think we underestimated the effect that Russia-Ukraine would have on CPI. I think Russia-Ukraine has had a tremendous impact on, you know, obviously gas at the pump, and also like commodities exports, like so food. And, you know, if there was not this conflict with Russia, and if we hadn't, you know, cut Russia off of our system, and if we had an appetite to drill for oil, which clearly the Biden administration didn't, I don't know if we'd have CPI as high as we do. I think it might still be lower. There's a lot of deflationary forces in the economy, you know.
Wait,
Yeah, but
hang on. I
It's
want
not
to
it's not
unpack.
quite as it's not quite as simple as Bitcoiners think it is, where it's like they printed money and so now everything is inflated. It's like, no, they shut down the economy. There's massive supply chain disruption. That, you know what I mean? There's a commodity war going on between Russia and the U.S. and NATO. So it's just like there's a lot of shit. There's a lot of shit happening, and they can kick the can down the road farther if they didn't have some of these like more overt geopolitical pressures. You know.
So I'm trying to figure out the way to phrase this in the nicest way possible to someone that I've genuinely just met 30 minutes ago. But we're a country that imports maybe 10% of our oil from Russia. And at the same time, we have sanctioned countries like Iran and Venezuela and limit imports from Saudi Arabia. And we really don't think those have a greater material impact on the price of oil than I don't buy the Putin price hikes.
It's
The
less
only
of
thing,
it's less of the American market and it's more of the European
okay,
market. For a while.
fair.
Yeah, and that's having an effect on the euro dollar futures market. It's a whole, you know, everything's daisy chained together. It's a very complicated system.
It's also the struggle between China and the West, because China basically had, what was it, 40 years or 30 years of like extreme investment from the US, which China allowed their lower class to be brought up into like first class status or whatever, like higher income middle class status. And I mean, China's gotten massive growth off of this peaceful sort of free market paradigm we've been under. And it almost feels like China, like everybody knows that this is unsustainable. You cannot just keep printing money and keeping rates low and investing all over the world and expect it to just continue going up forever. So at this point, it feels like we've gotten the most we could get out of this USD like reserve thing, where there's like over 1 billion people in China and 1 billion people in India, and like they're not getting any of the benefit from the US dollar as the reserve currency status, and shit's about to hit the fan. It is hitting the fan. So if you're China and you're like if you're thinking about this adversarially, if you're China and you know that there's going to be rough times ahead for you as a country that has to feed 1 billion people and keep control of people. You've deployed social credit scores. You've got communism that kind of removes people's ability to even think about politics because there is no politics there. It's just the Communist Party. But the shit's about to hit the fan. You want to be treated like a superpower. You want to have more control over global supply trade and relationships with other countries for securing commodities for your people, whatever. United States is trying to continue to be like the policeman of the world and keep the supply trades open and export inflation through the dollar everywhere. But how is that fair to the rest of the world? If you're China and you're like getting the shaft from the export of inflation, you've already benefited massively from the benefit of like having the rest of the world, and especially the United States, export their manufacturing sector to you, and you've gotten all that benefit. Well, that like paradigm is done pretty much. We know that like the shift is like the United States now is trying to encourage all these companies to start building up the factories again up in the United States. So I mean, it is kind of like a battle happening. So you think about it, like you're going to suffer. If you're China, you're going to suffer. So would you suffer just alone, or would you rather suffer with everybody else suffering too? And if you're China and you control all this like microchips and all this shit, like you would use COVID as an excuse, zero COVID as an excuse to drive CPI inflation in the West. I mean, all this zero COVID stuff where they're shutting down Shenzhen and banning the export of fertilizer and banning the export of microchips and all this stuff, saying like, oh, it's COVID. I mean, honestly, it's obviously just a way to drive civil unrest in the West, and it's a way to drive prices up. It's to inflict massive damage, or it's to inflict as much suffering as they can on the population here without it being an act of war, because they can use zero COVID as a smokescreen. So it's not just the Russia-Ukraine war, it's the struggle between all these powers that are vying to have a fair shake in what the next, Bretton Woods system is going to look like. And that's why I think it's not necessarily that it's going to be the death of the dollar and all this crap, or Bitcoin is going to replace fiat currency or anything like that. I just think it's going to be a decline of U.S. hegemony. It's going to be a balkanization of reserve asset status. And in this world, Bitcoin is going to play a bigger and bigger role of a political post-trust reserve asset. And I don't know. I'm still super hopeful and like confident that in the next 10 years, by 2030, like Bitcoin's going to be a way more important role in the global settlement and as money for the average person. So I think $1 million Bitcoin is kind of like, it's either going to $1 million or it's a failed experiment by 2030.
Yeah, I totally agree. By the way, I agree with your point of view about reserve asset status versus reserve currency as well. Although I think reserve asset status is probably like a temporary stop on the way to full on reserve currency status, but temporary could mean 50 years. Like we don't know how long that could go on for, right? And, because one of the things about being a reserve currency is there's a small cabal of people who have all the guns and write all of the laws. And those are the people who set what is the reserve currency or not. And none of us are in the club. But if the Bitcoin price increases dramatically, $1 million, $2 million, $10 million, $20 million, $30 million, whatever, suddenly there are going to be members of the club who are Bitcoiners, and they're going to have a say in what their next reserve currency is. But there is definitely a stop on the way there in reserve asset town. And, at some point we sort of act like a shadow peg between, all of the digital central bank currencies that are coming, right? And it's going to be like a pretty chaotic sort of next 100 years, well, 50 years, next 50 years. It's gonna be a long one,
What did you say the other day in Clubhouse? You were like, you're gonna be working like as an 80-year-old or something, talking to your grandkids. Like, back in my day, I used to have a lot of digital money. We used to value digital money, and I made friends with men
I'd be like,
that had names like Tina and P.
Listen up, grandchildren. I had all the friends. Some of my friends only had 2 letters for names, P and Q. I knew them all. I knew Bitcoin Fish, Bitcoin Cucumber, Bitcoin Gandalf. I knew all the Bitcoin guys, Mississippi HODL, Jamaican HODL, Norwegian HODL, Antarctic HODL. I knew them all. We were rich. It was great,
P, I want credit that I was not the one today who brought up price.
It's true.
I did not.
I give you a lot of shit. It was me. I also want to throw other. Go for it.
Well,
but before
I wanted
to, I'm gonna jump in. Go fuck yourself. Before we jumped on, we were all on Clubhouse, and HODL made the amazing suggestion that we should change the name of this show to, I think it was two guys, one letter.
Right.
Okay, I will admit that my fantasy football team name for years, I used to either draft Todd Gurley or Cooper Kupp, and it was literally 2 Gurleys, 1 Cup.
It's good. Solid.
So I love a good pun on that. I want to put on my tinfoil hat as I look around the office. I don't have aluminum foil anywhere, but Brad, I agree on such a deep level with what you were actually talking about. So tinfoil hat. Hopefully American HODL doesn't fully think that I'm an idiot after this, but Putin doesn't give a flying fuck about Ukraine. He can lose, he can cause absolute chaos. He doesn't care. He knows what he is causing is a squeeze on global wheat supply. At the same time, China has hoarded and has in storage, I believe, 18 months worth of wheat on their reserves. Prior to the invasion of Ukraine, the president of Iran sat down with Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin, the 3 of them, behind closed doors. I was not a fly on that wall, although I wish I was. But I'd be willing to bet a whole Bitcoin that at bare minimum, the question was asked, how has Iran survived under sanctions for so long? Almost as though both of these leaders were prepared and ready to take their country through the ordeal of being under U.S. sanctions. I think this is a very, very coordinated attempt to usurp the U.S. global dominance. And I personally think where it will end is, as we've seen historically, the best example of this was during the French Revolution when they limited the price of bread. You're going to see the U.S. government come out and think they're being really smart and say something like, we're going to limit the price of oil, and we refuse to pay more than $200 or $250 for a barrel of oil. And you may be thinking, like, we don't get to control that. Like, they're just going to laugh at us and be like, no. But they will actually say yes. And they will accept $250. But you will no longer see the petrodollar. And now all of a sudden the price of oil will be tied to something else. And the US dollar will fluctuate against whatever this new commodity good money that is tied to the price of oil. And all of a sudden, while we may be paying $250 USD, that $250 isn't really going as far as you think. And I think that will ultimately be the downturn and the collapse of the dollar. But now I take my tinfoil hat off, and how crazy do I sound?
I don't think you're crazy about there being a, strong desire for monetary reset from Russia and China. I mean, I think that's obvious, right? And I don't think it's crazy to say that they're colluding in that effort. That's not crazy either. And I also, the specifics elude me. I don't know what is going to happen from here. I've never had less clarity when looking out at, the macro landscape, the geopolitical landscape. Just no clarity. It just feels like we're in a environment where anything could happen. You know what I mean? So like the specifics of like, will they peg oil? I don't know. Maybe. We'll see.
Well, we saw for 10 years now, there's been talk about China and Russia working together to settle oil in something other than dollars. And, this is why, even going back to the Iraq war, like this has always been about control of commodities and control of energy supply. And it's funny because there's a lot of people on the left, the progressives and like the folks on the left that have for 2 years just gone like totally batshit insane over Russiagate, that thought that Trump was an actual agent of Putin, and that, that they had the videos of like hookers peeing on him in a hotel room, and that's why he was, working for Putin like directly or whatever.
Great video,
Like they
by the
had
way. Great video.
great video, yeah. So
by the way, as if Trump has any shame. If such a video existed,
yeah.
it would be like, it's me. I love it. Let him pee on my face. Let it rain down. I love it.
But like they will totally just swallow that Kool-Aid that like Russia controls everything, right? But at the same time, they buy the ESG narrative, and they don't understand that that was actually the Russian propaganda. The ESG, the anti-nuclear, you see Russia Russia and China continually investing in their own energy production. And now Russia's like not that important, honestly. Like on a global stage, like economically, it's very small part of the global economy. It's not a lot of people, but they have a massive stranglehold on Europe with their, control over natural gas and oil and coal. And, like Germany and Europe and us in the West, we've shot ourselves in the foot here by shutting down nuclear power plants and trying to like rage against the exploration of our natural gas and our oil, creating this like artificial scarcity, which is driving up the cost at the pump and giving all the cards to Putin. So I don't think it's so much about like they wanted to drive a shock of the supply of wheat or anything like that. I think that's just something that's a byproduct of this struggle, this geopolitical struggle. But I do think that the energy is the big thing to pay attention to. The fact that like this ESG narrative has been shilled so hard by, people who want to shut down all the nuclear power plants. But at the same time, they blame Putin for everything. Well, what do they think is going to happen? I mean, Putin is exploiting all these people that are working for him in the West. I mean, like, how else could you look at it any other way? Like, they're basically working for Putin by driving people to shut down nuclear power and stop exploring natural gas fields as, like, you know, you could have great clean energy independence, and then they just don't realize that, like, they get all their they get a lot of their supply of oil and gas and coal from Putin. So it's just kind of like a very strange thing. I feel like if there was actually Russian propaganda, it was kind of like the old KGB style. What's that guy's name? Yuri Bezimov or whatever, where he defected from the KGB in the 90s, and he came over and he talked about how, like, they will come in and get in the policymaker groups, and they will have a 30-year plan to demoralize and get their like unrest plan put in play. And you wouldn't see it now, but you'd see it in 30 years. It would, and it kind of looks like ESG. I mean, I went back and watched some of those videos of that guy talking about their game plan from back in the Soviet days, and it looks a lot like ESG and, you know, all the cancel culture that we have right now. So there is this lack of trust, and you don't know if you can trust the news. You don't know if you can trust the politicians. You don't know if you can trust the companies. Their censorship is rampant everywhere. We're going against our own national interests and logic by destroying our energy independence while giving it, you know, giving the opportunity for Russia to stay relevant. I mean, Russia would be completely irrelevant now if Canada and the United States really did just go ham on on our resources. But we've got this massive pushback with the ESG folks and the folks on the left that think it's going to end. The world is going to blow up in 10 years. Like, the world is ending because of because of fossil fuels. But yet they're so scared of Putin. It's so difficult to like be in this world where people don't, you know, they don't put those things together. And it's not going to end anytime soon, I don't think.
HODL just had to step out to take care of his child. He'll be back in a moment. Yeah, it's interesting. Q, what do you think? You've been quiet for a while.
I'm not surprised. Sorry. I am surprised that Brad didn't actually agree with me on, you know, the idea that this is a little bit more premeditated. But let's dive into the ESG stuff. I think the thing that made me laugh the most this weekend was seeing those clips from people who are working with Biden in the Biden White House, however we want to frame it, going out and saying, hey, the oil and gas companies, they need to develop more stuff. Like, we need to be able to better provide and drill oil and get more energy to our citizens. Oh, but in 5 years, we're also going to shut all of this down. Like, you guys are fucking stupid. These aren't solutions. Like, they're not. Like, I'm sorry, they're not. You may think they are, but this is the perfect example of you're treating the symptom and not the cause of the issue. And the cause of the issue is our poor policy decisions over the last decade plus that have led us to this almost squeeze where we kept telling ourselves we're going to be green. We're going to care about the planet. Like, dude, I was 20 fucking years ago, I still remember when my teachers were talking about, like, oh, we have to recycle. Like, you know, if we don't do anything about global warming, this, that, or the other. 20 fucking years later, and here we are.
Acid rain.
And
we were
we still
supposed to be
hear.
washing acid rain. Where's the acid rain? Where is it? Does it exist?
Honestly,
Last time you heard about acid rain.
I've never seen acid rain. Like, have we ever had acid rain recorded in human history in this millennia?
I mean, I think there is a very precise definition of what that means. I do remember seeing the documentary Captain Planet, where it was like literally melting people's faces off. So I'm pretty sure it did happen. But yeah, I totally agree. That was a huge thing.
Captain Planet was such ESG propaganda.
I know, it's incredible. I fucking love that show. And it was like
Me
the
too.
power of air, fire, water.
Heart.
And then Yeah, and then the guy got totally fucked over, and the little monkey ran across the screen, and it was heart. Oh god.
But to that point, it's we talk about these problems, but we didn't in this 20-year time span actually come up with viable solutions. Like, I'm so fucking sick of this. Go get an electric car. Oh, like everyone's gonna have an electric car, and then we're good. Like, all you have done is taken the fossil fuel consumption that you directly see and put it under the proverbial fucking rug, like you're sweeping in a cartoon. But guess what? In those cartoons where like the giant pile of dust goes under the rug and it just disappears. Guess what? When I tried to do that in college for the first time, it didn't work like that. And there was like this little lump on my rug. And that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with this like cancerous lump that is our entire energy policy.
It's such a weird, like, specific image.
But you
Young
see the
Q.
Actually
image.
happened to you, Q, didn't it? It actually did happen in college.
Look, a few beers in and any idea sounds good to me. And this is
So
why I don't drink anymore.
here's what I like. Libya was one of the opening salvos in this test of the United States' resolve of how far they're going to go to defend U.S. dollar hegemony. Because I used to think like, oh, well, I guess Gaddafi's a bad guy and they had to go in and take him out. But they didn't give a shit about what was going on to the people of Libya. They didn't really care about that, because if you look at Libya now, Libya has open slave trading. They just took him and his family out, and it was like a signal, like, don't mess around with U.S. hegemony. Because what he was trying to do was actually unite Africa to create this gold-backed African dinar thing, which was going to be a way for settlement of oil and resources in this African currency. And that was like, at the same time, China and Russia were announcing they wanted to explore using gold, a gold-backed currency for settling oil. And like back 10 years ago, that was more of a, the U.S. had more power to stop something like that from happening. U.S. and NATO, they just went in and took them out. That kind of put the kibosh on Africa getting organized. Even Nelson Mandela was supportive of Gaddafi's plan. Like, I went back and looked at this, and I thought it was like, I thought he was just some evil dictator that everybody hated. And it was like, well, Nelson Mandela actually supported him and was friends with him and liked him. Like, what was going on there? So you got to think it's like, it was all defense of the US dollar as the global reserve currency. And now we're entering into this new paradigm where it no longer works, because the Russian sanctions were like the last salvo in this war for US hegemony. And Brazil, Iran, Saudi Arabia, China, they're all not obeying these sanctions. Like, all these countries, India, like massive countries with billions of people, are totally turning a blind eye to these sanctions. And they're like, we don't care. We're going to buy energy. We need energy. We need wheat. We need fertilizer. We're going to buy this stuff from Russia. So it does feel like it's balkanizing. And then you got to think, like, why would all these other countries accept the export of hegemonic inflation if the U.S. cannot provide the security guarantees that it used to before? So I don't think this ends in World War III or anything crazy like that. I just think, like, what happens when the Ponzi falls apart, and there maybe is a point over the next 10 years where there is a no bid on the Treasury issuance. And like, what's going to happen there when the Federal Reserve has to buy $15 trillion worth of treasuries on its balance sheet because there's other things that people want to buy. There's other debt. And I mean, like, a lot of people this is why I can't even say this stuff on Clubhouse, because you get like Bitcoin Tina and Joe just like jump all over me for even going down these thought exercises. But I think we got to think about this stuff. I don't think it's all about the Fed. I don't think it's all about the central banks. I don't think it's all about the euro dollar markets. I think it's a major part of what's going to happen over the next decade or two is the geopolitical struggle and the breakup of the US dollar hegemonic status and the US Treasury as the global reserve asset, and what's going to benefit from that. I think we're going to benefit from that as Bitcoiners. It's going to be a lot of civil unrest. It's going to be a lot of volatility and prices. We may see higher inflation. I mean, anything is possible, like HODL said. Like, we're in these unprecedented times here where we could have stagflation for 10 years. We could have hyperinflation. We could have just continued high inflation. Or maybe they figure it out and some magical way they start going back to sound money policies, and there's a little bit of pain and then things go back to normal. But I don't see a world where Bitcoin doesn't benefit from this. I mean, I think it's going to be here in Canada, the housing market needs to come down by like 50% for it to make any sense. I don't know what it's like for you guys where you live, but in my area, over the last 10 years, my house, I bought it for $270,000 and I built it in 2010, and it's worth like almost $1 million now. It doesn't make any sense. Like, there's nothing extra in my house. I mean, I built a sauna and built a pool, so maybe I got myself an extra $20,000 or $30,000 of value there. It should be worth like 500 max. But the housing market, when the housing market starts to come down and come down hard, I think that's when everybody else is going to feel it, because then you'll have rising inflation and you'll have the wealth effect come off. So people won't feel as wealthy as they did. But like, most people don't own homes, so in a way it's good. Like, in a way it has to come down, because
Well,
you
yeah,
can't have this.
Powell said that at his presser, that they're targeting that. Like, he said, I think his specific verbiage was like, if you're a millennial aged home buyer, you need some help here, which is Fed speak for we're about to skull fuck the real estate market. You know what I mean?
That
Exactly.
is
Right.
exactly what it is code for.
Exactly. So it's like that's what's going to happen. And yeah, like, they're trying to create demand destruction, and they're doing a really good fucking job of it. Eventually, they have to reverse course, and when they reverse course, we're going to see another round of monetary stimulus. So like, all this geopolitical shit, like what's going on with Russia and China and the Ukraine and American hegemony, all of this, like, it's all something that we should try and be aware of and do our best to figure out what's going on. But like, it's too complicated. No one knows what's going on. You know what I mean? Like, there's too many power players jockeying for position. And so what I default back to is like, I'm just going to focus on hodling through, all of this bullshit, right? It's like Shaun of the Dead when he's like, let's just, go back to the fucking Winchester and have a pint, wait for all this to blow over. Like, that's where I'm at in my Bitcoin journey right now,
HODL, what do you think the chances are of, because we all didn't think that it would even get to this point, right? Like, last year we were all saying, like, if they raise the interest rates, it's going to decimate the stock market, and like, it's going to crash everything. So they won't do that. They have to keep rates low. They have to keep printing.
Yeah. So I think.
So do you think they will continue
Yeah.
crashing markets and like
I
actually
think
drive us into a Great Depression or something?
Something that we didn't appreciate as Bitcoiners is that essentially that real wealth is in the cash flows. And if you own the assets and you have the cash flows, like, you're still doing just fine. And all they're creating destruction on is the market capitalization of your assets, which is a short-term problem. And long-term, they're going to reverse course on it, and you're going to continue to appreciate upwards. But like, if you're in a position where you have an asset that has tremendous cash flows, like a piece of like prime real estate or something, like, you don't care about this. You're sitting pretty, right? But Bitcoiners, we don't have that. Like, we're purely speculative. Like, as Paul Tudor Jones said, we're the fastest horse in the race, right? So that means that, like, when there are bouts of stimulus, which we expect increasing bouts of stimulus, we are going to be outperforming everybody. We're going up faster than everybody, fastest horse. But when there's no stimulus, or when there's demand destruction, we're fastest down. We're fastest horse in both directions. And so that's where the increasing volatility comes from. And like, you have to be able to, make it through, have a plan, deal with that. You can't expect increasing Bitcoin prices forever. You should expect them going up and to the right over time. But in any 5-year period, I think you should brace yourself for extreme volatility, because you don't have cash flows to make it through this, like, the real estate guys do, or the equity guys do. Like, there's no dividends on your Bitcoin,
I do think, though, HODL, that there is a good chance that correlation is transitory. And the longer we stay in this environment where,
in terms of Bitcoin to NASDAQ, or what's correlated? Yeah.
Like,
okay.
the correlation of money printer go burr drives asset bubble inflations, or drives asset bubble inflation. Yes, Bitcoin is correlated in that environment, but the longer they try to get back to almost like sane policies, the more Bitcoin's utility and actual benefits are kind of like disseminated out into the market. the less likely things like DeFi coins and NFTs are going to be like distracting people and causing people to go pay attention to all that crap. And people will start paying more attention to Bitcoin as an asset class separate from everything else, decentralized, digital scarcity, digital gold, censorship resistant, store of value, all those things that make Bitcoin unique from every other asset, including crypto. So if we continue in this environment where you're almost going back to like a value investor way to look at things, the way like Warren Buffett and those guys look at value in companies, I think it actually makes a lot of sense. Like that's a normal free market capitalist system where it's not so much about the speculative premium. Like, oh, this is really hyped and hot right now. Pot stocks are going to go up, so I'm going to just deploy into pot stocks. Crypto's really hot right now. I'm going to deploy into crypto, whatever. That's all narrative, like FOMO driven because of the low interest rates and massive stimulus. But as we continue to go like into this paradigm of them trying to deflate the bubbles, then I do think Bitcoin can catch more and more adoption by wealthy people that understand what it is, and then it can go up without stimulus. I do think it can go up without stimulus. I think that's what I mean by inflation correlation is transitory, because the longer we're in this environment, I think it'll go back to the system where like people are buying Bitcoin because they understand digital gold thesis rather than like it's the fastest horse in the race. But maybe I'm just naive.
I think though that assumes a couple of things. And I think the one thing that it assumes is that people are drawn into the DeFi, like broader crypto space for reasons beyond price movement. And the truth is Bitcoin has no marketing team, whereas Andreessen Horowitz will buy whatever, invest in the latest shitcoin, and then they'll pump it up through an actual marketing effort with like catchy slogans and taglines and make people think like, oh, Web3 or blockchain. So therefore it's good. It's going to be a sound investment. I will get to my question in a moment, but I think you could actually explain a lot of the assets inflating up. Like your home country of Canopy Growth was a perfect example of continuing to promise what our future is going to look like so long as we're limited in the present by regulation, but we can forecast out what it looks like. So it makes our earnings reports look really good. But when you ever calculate the future value of money, you have to use interest rates in the present. And here's a little quick tip. When interest rates are low, the future value of money looks really fucking good. You can take that money from the future, absorb it now, and it's going to cost you a lot less than if interest rates are higher. That's why you had tech stocks. That's why you had all of these really growth-oriented stocks that's entire movement is rooted around what does their or earnings forecast look like. I can live with negative earnings because if their future earnings are growing, that's good, but they're growing artificially because rates are being suppressed at a 0% rate. So I think that's what's caused the asset bubble, and we're just seeing it unwind. It as rates continue to increase every single time. Like this past earnings season's great example of everyone missed, all of their forecasts were off, and now you're starting to see everything contract as a result. It's only going to get worse as rates continue to expand. My question for the two of you is, and it goes back to something that we talked about where I do think there is a scenario where Bitcoin could possibly fail, and that is actually if Powell and the Fed has the balls to just crater the economy. And I'm curious what anyone here.
Wait.
Like, let me explain what I think by crater the economy. Like, I'm genuinely saying Powell may very foolishly take the total Fed fund rate to double digits, and we may actually see like an insane interest rate level that the US can't afford, mind you, but they may do it for the sake of the economy. And in turn, that could actually end up like we could have to sit on Bitcoin for much longer than I think people think in that type of a scenario. What is the likelihood anyone here thinks that that's actually a scenario that Powell has the stomach or balls to follow through on?
Zero.
I
0%
agree.
likelihood.
Absolutely zero.
The Fed put is still there. It's just lower because they're trying to destroy CPI. So yeah, there's no possible scenario in which Powell is going to throw the world into global depression. Now, they might do it accidentally. That could happen. But I doubt they're going to do it intentionally, you know.
Brad, Canada.
I kind of I don't think that it's impossible that they do that. I think there's not much they can do. I mean, it doesn't make sense that we just go up forever in the stock market and housing prices. And because of this global shift in like vying for the next like paradigm of global reserve currency and asset, I mean, there's less and less effect that the Federal Reserve can have on global markets in that world where it's balkanized. And I do think there is a chance that we go into like a 1920s, 30s style depression. But in that world, like, it's not going to destroy Bitcoin. I think it's going to like make it a little bit more difficult for it to go up, but it's going to keep going up because there's still only like 2 to 3% or maybe 5% of the world that has exposure to Bitcoin and even knows what the hell it is. And in a world like that, where, you know, we're in a real like Great Depression 2.0, but like, you know, this time with Netflix, people are still going to have the internet. We're still going to have modern technology. I mean, it's not going to be like World War III nuclear bombs dropping on everybody. It's just going to be like a depressed, long time depressed economic situation with lots of jobless people. And maybe that like does delay Bitcoin's like $1 million price target by 5-10 years. But I don't think it kills Bitcoin, even if we do get into like Great Depression 2.0. I think it just makes it so that we have to work harder to educate more and more people about why this like is a lifeboat to get back onto a different system that you can protect yourself from, because they're going to try to like, whether it's going to cause a populist uprising. If they do try to do that, there's going to be a populist left uprising or a populist right uprising, depending on how bad they screw it up. And if they drive us into a depression, it's going to be a populist uprising. If they drive us into hyperinflation, there's going to be a populist uprising. So like, there will be it'll be civil unrest of some sort if they screw it up. So they could screw it up for sure, one way or the other. I mean, like if you get the modern monetary theory, like Bernie Sanders, AOCs of the world in there to try to do like UBI and like tax the rich and like, you know, monetize or weaponize the money printer for the people, that's probably going to lead us into hyperinflation. If you have a populist uprising where they seize control of the money printer and they try to use it for good, you know, they use it for good and they end up like causing hyperinflation. Well, that sucks too. So either way, I think there is a real chance that we could have these outlier things that everybody says is hyperbolic, that like, oh, you know, Bitcoiners say hyperinflation could happen, they're morons. I mean, look, there's a non-zero chance that we could have hyperinflation. There's a non-zero chance we could go into a Great Depression 2.0. And I do think that like Bitcoin will do well in not like, you know, short term, but long term. It's just more and more people will understand what Bitcoin is. And like, look at gold. Gold's been, you know, it was suppressed for a little while, but you know, ever since they banned gold, you know, it went up what, 50x or something since the day they banned gold. Just took a long time. So yeah, it might increase your length of time to hodl, but you can't stop Bitcoin. It's just a matter of like how educated people are. And the only thing about it is like, if we're in this world where you're thinking about where your next meal is going to come from, I mean, if it gets that bad, then yeah, people aren't going to be so much thinking about spending extra money on entertainment and digital money. So yeah, it might delay adoption by a while, but unless the internet goes out, I don't understand how Bitcoin couldn't succeed.
Yo, all right. On that though, we have so many bigger problems than accessing your Bitcoin if the internet or like all of the power grids were to go out.
Exactly, yeah.
Like so many more problems to deal with than, oh, I can't get my Bitcoin stack. Like you're not going to go to an ATM, you fucking idiot.
But I do think we could have like a Great Depression 2.0 with the internet and with modern technology, where people are just like economically depressed and out of work, and shit sucks for a while. But we still have technology and the internet, and Bitcoin is still going to exist in that world, and it's still going to do well over time as you get more and more people to understand what Bitcoin is and why you should save in it. Then it'll come out of that much stronger, because maybe you'll go from 5% of the world to like 25% of the world saving in Bitcoin and holding it for their heirs. It's just going to delay like the eventual hyper-Bitcoinization.
Yeah, I agree. There's nothing that Powell can do to like end Bitcoin. That's not even on the table. It's just a question of the larger economic environment and potentially extending the timelines that we are all talking about here.
Right, but P, when you run out of insect milk and all the cat food you have stored,
I've got so much.
Like my dad's argument on this.
Wait, but what does that even have to do though with like the potential for Powell to wrap
it's not,
his hands around the neck of Bitcoin?
It's not like a premeditated, oh, we're going to destroy Bitcoin by doing this. I think this is the best course of action to fix the American economy. Yeah, and in turn, what inevitably happens is, as Brad's kind of alluding to, just entertain it. This is an entertainment show for entertainment
my face
purposes.
Is too expressive.
There's no financial advice in any of this. We didn't say that enough
so
today.
Don't buy insect milk? Is that what you're saying?
No. Buy insect milk.
Stock
do
up on
buy
insect milk.
All in insect milk. No regrets.
HODL, what are you gonna do during Great Depression 2.0? What's your plan?
So, first of all, I don't know that we're going into Great Depression 2.0, but if it's for entertainment purposes, listen, I think I'm not gonna talk about Great Depression 2.0, but a great way to make it through the bear market to keep your sanity in check is to work on projects that make you better as an individual. So if you're feeling fearful like right now because the Bitcoin price is low, that's because your education, your conviction is dog shit, and you need to work on getting that up, right? Or your conviction and your allocation don't match, in which case maybe you should just sell your Bitcoin if you're not cut out for this life, right? Or I don't know, work out, meditate, read, go for walks, do shit
adjust your cash flow, get a second job.
Yeah, exactly. Live on ramen noodles, you know what I mean? Insect milk. Yeah.
On year 12,
you are the biggest source of FUD in this conversation so far. What is happening?
I've got to throw a wrench in the conversation, otherwise we're just an echo chamber, guys. So, anyways, on year 12 of Powell's Great Depression 2.0,
oh my God,
we've run out of insect milk in all of the grocery stores. They've even run out of the pea protein Beyond Meat. Just hear me out on this, P. Say it gets so bad that you are genuinely 12, 13, 15 years in and we're not making enough food. All of a sudden, I don't give a fuck if I have 100 Bitcoin. If I don't have food in my stomach, I'll pay a whole Bitcoin, or you'll see the price of the Bitcoin pizza day. That will be a steal in year 30 of Powell's Great Depression 2.0.
What are we even talking about here? There's a couple things you said that I completely disagree with. One, you can't run out of insect milk, so this is obviously just an impossible scenario. Obviously, everybody's going to have their own insect milking farms, and it's going to be enough to just sustain the world. But separate from that, what are we even talking about here?
This is stoicism. We're practicing stoicism right now.
Dude, to be honest,
it's like a retarded form.
Exactly. It's like if you hit yourself in the head with a brick a few times, and then you're like, yes. What if?
All I know is I left P, of all people, speechless for a long pregnant pause, which is kind of impressive.
It is.
All right. Well, let's get back on track.
It does seem like the most likely scenario is that they just create enough pain to get markets back into destroying the wealth effect for the people that benefited the most, which causes the wealth gap to get wider. When they do these low interest, lots of stimulus, interferences in the free market, it does make things worse for the bottom 50%. So they're trying to stop that. Like HODL said, they're trying to do demand destruction, which is a deflationary force. So there are lots, HODL's right, there's lots of deflationary forces.
Destroying people's wealth is deflationary.
Keep going. Yeah, there's lots of deflationary forces in the mix right now, but I don't think they want to go to Great Depression either. I don't think they want to do that. They could screw it up and do that, but most likely central banks all over the world will come together and, create some new momentum to get us back into bull market mode. I was reading Reminiscences of a Stock Operator again recently. I like to read that at least once a
Love
year.
that book.
Good
And
book.
I went through the part where he's trading through the 1907 crash. And so there's this 1907 crash, everything froze up, and JP Morgan was out there giving loans to people directly, like, personally guaranteeing the trust funds and the banks and giving them lots of money to get things back on track. And so even during the depths of that greatest crash, there was like a bull market that developed because liquidity came into the system, and then the human spirit came back to life of entrepreneurship and capitalism. So even during that moment, and then he also talked about during World War I, when it was like globally, there was like so many negative things happening all over the world. Everybody was scared and the stock market was crashing. But then like all of a sudden there was this announcement by, whoever was in charge at the time that they were going to do price controls and stuff like that. And all this gold started flooding into the United States. And there was like this massive bull market came out of nowhere. So he talks about how even in these global depressions and world wars and things like that, there can be conditions that arise that create, opportunity for people that are in the right things to make money. So I think like it's totally possible over the next 6 months that even though there's all this shit storm happening all over the world with like food shortages and supply chain disruptions and, central banks control demolitions going on, that something bullish can happen. And, we could get back to 100K by the end of 2022. It's also not off the table. I honestly think there's just as much of a likelihood that we're at 100K at the end of this year as, there could be that they screw up and send us into a Great Depression. Actually, it's greater that we go to 100K. I don't think the chances of a real Great Depression are that high.
By the way, I like I said, nothing's off the table. Like nothing would surprise me. Like I agree with Brad also that like that 1907 thing is becoming a meme in Bitcoin. I saw Turdemeester say it, and I saw Lynn Alden say it. So it's like the high level think boys and think girls are out. So,
Wait, sorry, what is the specific meme?
in 1907, there was a very specific market panic that basically like collapsed the markets.
Yeah, of course.
And within like 12 months, they had completely recovered.
Okay,
right?
got it. That's the
Yeah. That's the meme.
It was back when there was no central bank to bail out and provide liquidity, and all these trusts and stuff were totally wrecked.
Yeah, it's part of the story of the creation of the Federal Reserve.
Oh yeah, of course. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
So anyway, like I think basically like, could Bitcoin shoot right back up to 50? Yeah. Could Bitcoin go down to 8? Yeah. Like fucking everything's on the table. Like fucking act accordingly. You know what I mean? Like
Please go to $8 a Bitcoin. Oh my fucking god.
$8.
Yeah,
the only appropriate strategy is to hodl with no or low leverage. Like that's it. That's the only strategy that's gonna work. You know what I mean?
And level up your cash.
wait. Hashtag not financial advice.
Absolutely financial advice. You
At
should hodl.
$8 a
Bam.
Bitcoin, that's 140 million market cap.
Wait,
It's not great. It's not great. At
Did
that
you say-
point, all we can do is put on a brave face.
Yeah.
Again, though, I think
Minor details.
Michael Saylor would own all the Bitcoins at that market cap.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty
No,
much.
he would have been margin called so many times at that point. He would have lost his whole stack.
I
by
do
that
think
point.
I do think it's like nearly impossible though to go below like
Don't say things
3,000.
Like this.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
come on,
market.
come on.
The market is listening, and
That's
now is going to attack this price point. Brad.
Also, like, I mean, look. We've been spending. I think we've been talking about macro, but now we're like fixated on price. And I think that like there isn't a fucking world in which the United States could kill Bitcoin. That's not I mean, whatever. It's like it's just not going to happen. We're talking about these significant economic events. We're in this extremely unusual sort of economic epoch right now. And yeah, anything is possible. But I think that the fundamental aspects of Bitcoin, the things that are so important in terms of its censorship resistance, its It's, the fact that it disintermediates this aspect of finance, which previously just wasn't even a twinkle in the eye of the vast majority of people. Those fundamental qualities don't go anywhere. And it still represents this incredible, unique lifeboat through these tumultuous economic times. And that's the thing that is the most interesting to me personally. There's two things that just occurred to me. Brad, we spend so much time, yelling. I didn't even give you an actual introduction. So I want to give you the opportunity to explain to the people that are listening who you are and why you bathe in maple syrup each day and how that affects your position size. And also, then I have a second question after you do that.
Yeah, so I got into Bitcoin around 2014. I was doing filmmaking, and I decided I was going to sell my car and ride a scooter around for a while and just stack on every bit of Bitcoin I could get. I told my wife not to have any guacamole and to buy Bitcoin instead, and I did that for like 3 years, and then I came up with the 6.15 Bitcoin meme.
Whoa, are we about to have a
That sounds
fight over who created the 6.15 Bitcoin meme?
I mean,
Never-
history
I think both
such
parties
a
here have
fresh
claimed.
and unique origin story. You sound like such a brave spirit. I'm happy to know you. You're so inspiring.
I go
You're
by
amazing.
Canadian HODL. No, my that was HODL's story somewhat. I kind of probably butchered it a little bit, but
Yeah, it was so bad at the beginning. I was like, wait, are we talking? I didn't realize you guys had a similar origin story.
That's why I was so confused. I was like, wait a minute.
no, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I used to do like Facebook games and I was in film as well, but like I was more of an indie film guy, like trying to make cheesy horror movies and stuff like that. And my initial sort of like exposure to Bitcoin was in 2011 when I had some extra money from my Facebook game that was like in the digital currency space. So it was like fake money, like just on a database. It's just like social game money. And I was like, oh, well, I gotta like figure out what to do because these people are valuing my digital money and I want to protect it. So what do I invest in the stock market, or like, that seems kind of like a Ponzi scam to me. I don't really care that much about stocks. So I started looking into like reading books about money and how to manage money and how to invest and things like that. And that brought me to gold. I think it was I had watched like some Peter Schiff stuff for around Occupy Wall Street. I was into Ron Paul with like libertarianism and Austrian economics and talking about gold as money. Rich Dad, Poor Dad, the books like that was talking about like real estate and gold. And so there was this dude that I was importing some gold to Canada, some gold and silver. I'm like, I'm going to take a third of my savings here and I'm going to put it in gold, silver, or half. I was going to put it in gold and silver. And this guy was doing these videos on how to import gold and silver to Canada without paying tax on it because I didn't have a lot of money back then extra. I was putting it all into the business and just built my house. So I'm like, I got to save on my taxes. I don't want to pay 8% HST tax on buying these silver and gold ingots. And anyways, he was also talking about Bitcoin. He's like, and there's this digital gold. It's called Bitcoin. And it's so great that I'm going to guarantee that if you buy this Bitcoin, that if it ever goes below $1, I'll just refund you the Bitcoin, the money that you spent on Bitcoin. And I'm like, what? He's going to refund me the money? I got to look into this. So I started looking into Bitcoin. And it was at $5. And so I decided I was going to put a third into gold, a third into silver, and a third into Bitcoin. And that's how I originally found out about Bitcoin, through this dude on YouTube that was giving price guarantees that it would never go below $1.
Jesus Christ. How did you survive your childhood?
I ended up, by the time I got into it though, it was 10. And it was during that summer of 2011 when I heard about it at 5. It was 10. I got Bitcoin. It went up to 30. I sold half my Bitcoin at 30, thinking I'm such a genius. I just doubled my money. I'm like, oh, I'm too late. Like, it already went up so much. I missed it. It was $1 a year ago. I'm too late. So, anyways, that's why I give the advice to people nowadays is like, don't trade it because you're gonna screw it up. Like, if I had just bought Bitcoin and just held it for 10 years and not tried to do anything else, I'd have been like way better off than all this stuff I was trying to do and trying to catch up to my original amount that I got into Bitcoin. So most people are never going to be able to like beat the market. It's you either get lucky by getting a Shiba Inu and getting out at the right time, or you end up getting wrecked.
Thank you for giving us the. Go ahead, Huddle.
Oh no, I was just gonna say like something me and Brad talk about often is activity bias, and I think activity bias is a default for human beings, for mammals, and like it's always better to do something than nothing, like in an evolutionary sense. And so we all have this very strong desire to like, oh no, I need to do something. Bitcoin's crashing. I mean, listen, people can go on Twitter and put on a brave face, but I know a lot of you pussies sold your Bitcoin yesterday. You know what I mean? Like, I know it. I know you did. You know what I mean? You can admit it. Don't do it. Keep it to yourself. It's pathetic.
I bought it.
Don't ever
I
admit
bought
that
your
shit.
Bitcoin, paper hand, little bitch.
But no, I mean, it's like trying to overcome your activity bias is one of the keys. I have this quote from Reminiscences of a Stock Operator on my wall. It's just basically like, listen, like the most money I ever made was from sitting on my fucking ass doing nothing, and that's always going to be true. And so like if the price is really, really, really high, you probably don't want to do anything. If it's really, really, really low, probably don't want to do anything. If it's in the middle, you just don't do anything. Just sit still. It's very hard to do.
It's good advice.
Sometimes you get this piece of advice thrown out there. I think Preston Pish says it the best, where it's buy Bitcoin and then don't think about it, don't touch it for 5 years. But for some reason, I kept seeing the number 4 years get thrown out. And I just want to point out that technically speaking, there was a moment over the weekend where you could have bought Bitcoin 4 years ago and you were actually underwater. So that narrative is dead. I do think the 5-year narrative is next on the table. So I'm just saying, is there?
I don't think it's
so
dead
arbitrary.
though. I'm still gonna lie. I'm still gonna use it. People don't know.
Listen. Here's the thing: is like
I'm still gonna say you're not
Fine,
gonna
fine.
lose money.
Say it, but say it with like an asterisk of. But at the 4.5-year mark, there's potential because one time.
Look, you were in here arguing that the stock to flow model is not dead.
It's valid.
Oh my god.
Plan B, come on the show. I need your help to better articulate what you're trying to
Just
do.
digging yourself deeper, my friend. Just deeper and deeper. Wait, I have one more question.
Wait,
And then
Huddle
I have
was
one
gonna
more
say
question.
something.
I forgot what I was gonna say.
You were gonna talk about like the new narratives people are gonna come up with. I think.
I love
Oh,
this.
I already heard it. I heard it from Corey Clipson the other day, which was, you're not really a mature asset class until you've gone below the prior cycle high, and then you're really a mature asset class, and that's a sign that you've arrived. So that's the new narrative. That you look in the mirror and repeat it until you can cope
That's
with
funny.
it.
People will come up with no matter what narrative, as long
New
as there's a narrative.
justifications.
But
Yeah,
look,
of
we
course.
still have the rainbow chart. The rainbow chart.
know, I
Remember
was
the
gonna talk
rainbow
about
chart? The rainbow chart from like 2013. That was like this prediction.
Eric, shout out Eric Wall. I know. Listen. The rainbow chart is satire. Please, God, don't turn it into the next stock to flow. Please, God.
It's too
The
late.
stock to
People
flow
are already
ratio
doing it.
was based on the rainbow chart.
Wait,
Well,
can we just?
The rainbow chart is satire. Eric, who popularized it, would admit it's satire. Stop using it. Stop. It was invented by a guy named Trollolololol. Okay?
Shut up.
Stop.
Yes.
Someone sent me that 2 weeks ago. Someone sent me the rainbow chart last Monday during the price dip, like down to this like 20K level. And they were like, is it like, this is the moment, right? Like I should buy. I didn't
We
really
were like,
reference-
yes, this chart is solid gold.
I didn't
the
say
only thing
anything
that's better
about
than
the
this
chart.
is the,
Apparently, there's TikTok influencers out there pumping the rainbow chart. So I don't listen. I wouldn't throw yourself behind the rainbow.
No,
chart.
not this one, Chris. Not this tweet. This is
We don't need
Plan
to
B's
throw-
most recent tweet though. This is from yesterday.
Why are we-
Defending stock to flow? Chris
Why-
is just trying to get me fired at this point. I think Chris is out to get me.
Hugh, you know, you're your own worst enemy. I can't believe you are like the one Bitcoiner who is like, this stock to
Plan
flow
B
model.
too. Plan B also. So it's two of us. Me and Plan B are on
Jesus
this
Christ.
ship
All right, I have
together.
one more question, Brad, and then
I do have one more question. So P, you can ask, and then I will ask.
All right. I asked HODL this earlier. I think it's an important thing to throw out there just to get on the record. This is a recorded conversation. Marry, fuck, kill, Yellen, Lagarde, Powell, or Carson.
Who?
The fat guy.
Dr. Eggman?
Oh,
Augustus?
really-
The
That
BIS
one.
Augustine?
chief.
Yes.
Yeah.
Um,
He's like yay big.
He has the hardest
I
working
think
button.
that's a very
button in fashion.
conservative surface area, HODL.
I would
Yeah,
say in what order?
It doesn't matter. You just got to say. I mean,
you
Mary Fuck
pick.
Kill
That's
is
the
the.
game. Yeah.
I guess that Carson guy for all three. Really, that would be interesting.
Oh man, that's the right answer.
Carson,
You,
like that would
what's
be
the
an
order of
interesting life
operations?
experience. An
Yes.
What's the
interesting
order of
life
operations
experience.
on that?
Yeah, in reverse order. Carson in reverse order.
Oh,
Good God.
nightmare.
Yes,
do,
yes.
do we have the
Don't,
do we
do
have
not
the bandwidth?
visualize.
Do we have the bandwidth to go and have actually a more legit philosophical question answered?
Yeah, sure.
And this can be our final question. And HODL, you can get back to daddy duties, and Brad, you can get back to doing all the wonderful things that you do while P and I just dick around on Twitter after this.
I'll be with you.
80-20 principle. I would say it's a good gauge of, 20% of the population knows how something operates or works. And then the rest of the population, the 80%, just sort of uses it because they have to, whether it's turning on the lights or turning on your car or just the internet itself. And we in Bitcoin are very, very obsessed has a negative connotation, but we are obsessed with really understanding money and Bitcoin on a deeper level than the average person. But do we think when Bitcoin does enter that hyper Bitcoinized world and is used on a global scale, that everyone is going to understand Bitcoin as deeply as those of us who are in it now do? Or is it going to be more synonymous with things like the light bulb that just people accept, oh, this works?
Yeah, it'll be more synonymous with the latter. And in fact, like 80-20 is fucking pushing it. I mean, there's only 3% of the American population that's financially independent, right? So like that means only 3% of people even have an inkling of how, money and finance works. And I live in a nice neighborhood. It's full of doctors and lawyers and executives. I can tell you, not a single one of these fucking idiots that lives around me knows anything other than how to do their job. They know how to be a doctor. They know how to be a lawyer. They don't know how the fucking economy works. They have no idea, right? And so, like, I think the actual number of people who understand, like, money at a deep structural level is 0.0000001% of the population, and probably always will be. Because when money is working, there's no reason to think about it. It's just a culturally enforced dogma. It's just the water that you swim in every day, and you're a fish and you don't realize, right? And it's also like money is sort of a language that you think in, right? So it's like, you learn English when you're young, and maybe you learn a second language if you grow up bilingual, and then you learn money because money is like language is a tool that like toddlers use to unlock things in their environment. Like if I cry, mommy will give me that thing, but if I say, donut, then I get a donut, right? It's much more direct than actually just crying and having somebody guess your needs and wants. And so money is another unlock that we learn when we're young, which is like, if I go to the Target and I see a bunch of toys or whatever, like I know that toy costs this amount of money and I need that much money to unlock that toy. Learn that very young. And so I think like Bitcoin will be just a new monetary language that the planet learns. And, people are starting to upgrade to that language now. And like, I certainly have upgraded to that. I think most of us have, or a lot of us have in Bitcoin space. And it's a new way of, thinking. So most people won't have enough metacognition to question the way they're thinking. It'll just be the culturally enforced dogma that surrounds their lives.
I think that like companies like Cash App are doing the great work for what you're talking about, HODL. Like they're Bitcoin has the Lindy effect, and like Bitcoin's got the brand, for this new type of money, and Cash App has the distribution. And so it's really awesome to see Cash App going Bitcoin only, and like Square merchants and stuff are going to be probably soon turned on with Bitcoin, be able to accept Bitcoin. So of course there's a lot of confusion in this language because there's all kinds of other languages out there like Dogecoin, which can attract a lot of those left curvers that are like, I guess money could be the currency of Mars because Elon likes it. And you get a lot of people that are falling for that crap, but thankfully markets punish bad ideas. So like sucks for all the people that lost their money thinking that they should learn the language of Celsius or the language of Luna, and they got completely wrecked following people like Raoul Pal and Mike Novogratz off the risk cliff, like lemmings.
I believe it's pronounced RuPaul, but continue.
RuPaul. But we thank God we got like Bitcoin Magazine, Cash App, these companies that have distribution. But like Cash App specifically with the cultural stuff they're doing with all the the title and stuff like that. It's a great thing that we've got people that are not just out there trying to make money, but trying to do it for principled reasons, and recognize that Bitcoin is different from all this other stuff. And I do think that as times get tougher here in the West, we will have less and less monetary privilege, and less people will be able to, care about NFTs and cryptocurrency speculation and stuff like that. Because if you compare the Google search results in the West for all these hyper like trendy investment schemes like GameStop and NFTs and crypto and Dogecoin with Bitcoin, right? Like you go on Google search trends, you look at the West, and then you go and you look at the place like Lebanon or Nigeria, where there's like Nigeria specifically, where there's like 200 million people that live under these oppressive conditions with their currency. They don't have monetary privilege to be like go off and learn this exotic language of NFTs. They need Bitcoin. They need to learn English. You know what I mean? Like Bitcoin is like the dominant language of money for people who need to protect themselves from the the current failure of the status quo system that they live under. So I think that just that is to say that in our like last decade of living here trying to talk about Bitcoin, a lot of people don't care that much to look deeply about into it because money just has worked. But as this shit is hitting the fan and money is like stopping to work the way that it was expected to work, you will get people that will probably dig more into it. Like I've got regular people talking to me these days, like normies, are being like, yeah, the prices are going up too high. There's something wrong. I feel like something's wrong, or I don't understand how housing prices can keep going up. It feels like there's something wrong. And then, they're looking into like, what is the effect of printing too much money on prices and asset prices? So even in the normal like status quo environment we've lived in under the last 20 years or so in the West, yeah, you have this 80-20 thing. It's probably like HODL said, it's more like 0.1% to the 99.9% who actually care about like what is money and why they should care about it. But as the prices keep rising and it's getting less and less, privilege for us over here, then I do think that's going to get more towards 80-20. And hopefully we just all figure, we do our job as educators and present people with the facts about why Bitcoin is different from everything else. And then hopefully you get those 20% going to Bitcoin rather than trying to like fall for these degenerate urges to go like 10x on an NFT or Dogecoin or something like that.
Well said. Well,
it all just goes back to, taking the time to answer the question of what is money. I think that's the root of, I think, all of our journeys. I'm gonna stop talking, P. You could wrap us up.
No. I
Although we didn't get my dramatic reading from the print issue.
Oh no.
Oh wait, let me ask HODL something real quick about that. What I just said, like HODL, because you usually have good takes on this stuff. Like I sometimes worry too much about these things. So what do you think about what I just said about like as we lose monetary privilege, more and more people will go to Bitcoin, and should we be worried about people going to off on the risk cliff, continuing like to go off in the shitcoin stuff?
I think if you read When Money Dies by Adam Ferguson, it talks about the Weimar Republic and what happened there that gave rise to Hitler, which is a very important book for any Bitcoiner. If you haven't read it, you should read it. Like there's a lot in that book about the way people in the Weimar Republic behaved, and rampant speculation was like a common part of daily life. And so when the money dies, you do see people pile into riskier and riskier assets. The new hot thing, which is it was NFTs this last cycle. There will be another shitcoin pump. I'm almost sure of it. I'm done prophesying its death. I think Bitcoiners were pretty much right about everything, except we were wrong about, alt season, and that was a big blind spot for us, because we were willfully ignorant. We wanted it not to be true, and we were sort of blind to it. It happened, and it was obvious that it was happening, and we just hate shitcoin, so we want it to go away, right? So I think like there's going to be even greater speculation the next time around. And like, no, I don't agree with your thesis that people have learned their lesson. I don't think people ever learn their lesson. I think they're going to speculate even harder next time on something that's even stupider than a picture of a fucking monkey. And I know it's hard to believe that.
How could you get even dumber than that?
Believe
A bag
me,
of human
like
feces.
you'll never go broke betting on the stupidity of the average person. Like, think about how stupid the average person is, and then just consider the fact that half of everyone is dumber than that. You know what I mean? That's where we're at, right? And so, I think Bitcoin being the least confiscatable form of money, or if you want to use Tone's word, unconfiscatable, which is a made-up word, but I like it. It's the least confiscatable form of money and like wealth, really. And so, like, rich people are going to figure this out, and, they're going to look for places to store their wealth where it can't be confiscated away from them because they have a lot to lose. You can also cross a hostile border with your Bitcoin in your head. And so if you have $10 billion of wealth, you can literally cross a hostile border with all of that in your head. Look what happened to the Russian oligarchs when the sanctions came down. Everybody around the West was trying to strip them of their wealth. Can't happen in Bitcoin, right? There's nothing for them to do about it. So I think, yeah, there's a lot of factors that are all pointing towards Bitcoin. But if you're talking about like the speculation of the crowd, that's going to continue, and most of it won't be in Bitcoin, which is actually like it's a good thing for the long term. Retail investors looked at Bitcoin this last cycle and they were like, it's too goddamn expensive. I'd rather buy this picture of a monkey, or I'd rather buy Shiba Inu because they have like tremendous unit bias. That's not slowing down anytime soon, especially not when a single Bitcoin costs more than somebody's house. It'll be even more of that effect.
I agree with you, but you don't think that because of the tightening conditions and like the like decline of monetary privilege, you don't think that will put like more of a logical spin on things, or do you think it's just gonna?
Well, if the tightening continued, yeah, but my base case is that I expect the tightening to reverse course and for them to ease pretty rapidly.
And it'll reinflate all the
And it'll
nonsense.
reinflate all the craziness. And I think you're going to continually see that. Like Tina's been saying, fugoid cycle. I don't know how to say it. Matthew Pines has been tweeting about it as well. It's like, basically we're in this period where, there's going to be increasing expansion and contraction, right? And that's going to cause a lot of volatility in asset prices to the upside and then back down again. And as liquidity crises unfold, you're going to see continually that risk assets will sell off. So you're going to see all that money go into NFTs and bullshit. Like I've been telling Brad, I think the next shitcoin bubble is centered around identity. I don't know how the shitcoiners will take identity and bastardize it, but I know that they will because I've seen them do it time and time again. And so there will be some sort of new stupid identity coin bullshit that's coming out, and that'll be the basis of the next shitcoin cycle. It's going to be very painful to watch, as it always is. It's going to inflate even higher than it was last time. Like that's the base case because the central banks are going to reverse course. They have to. It's only a matter of time. So it's like the question is though, when do they reverse course? And are you in a position to make it until they reverse course?
So
and
in
if
that
you're not in that
environment,
position, you should shore up resources and get in that position.
in that environment, HODL, how do we handle the next bubble then? If like this time we were just like burying our heads in the sand and calling it all scams and like getting triggered all the time and watching this craziness, how do you think Bitcoiners should prepare for like processing and reacting to the next wave of this nonsense?
I got to tell you, I don't have a good answer for this because I've just been like out here for the last fucking 7 years. I mean, listen, all throughout 2017, I was fighting with the XRP army. And then all throughout 2020, 21, I was fighting with people who bought Monkey JPEG. So like, I have no good plan for how to solve it. I'm just going to probably fight with the identity bros when they do identity tokens, like, I don't know. Like, how else are you supposed to stop it? Like, people are aggressively stupid. They want to gamble on things that are, outright Ponzi schemes, and like the regulators are allowing it and are in bed with the Ponzi scheme promoters. So it's like, I don't know what to do. I just throw up my fucking hands.
Yeah, it's good. It's this weird dynamic where if you're critical of it, you're looked at as a toxic Bitcoin maxi.
Or a
And
troglodyte or something, right?
Yeah,
yeah, you hate
you're a
technology. Why do
Luddite.
you hate innovation, bro? It's like, I love innovation, dude. I'm a fucking Bitcoiner. All my family's entire net worth is in digital money, my guy. Like, come on. I was here before you. I love innovation. This is not innovation. Like,
the way that I
it's
like
basically taking well, I'm not gonna say anything interesting here, but it's not about the reality of the situation. That's just a very effective or a sometimes effective argument to basically try to cut the knees out from the people that you don't like. You just make it, they're mean.
yeah, right. Everybody. This is the funniest thing too. It's like, how come nobody saw this coming? How come nobody warned us about Terra Labs? It's like the Bitcoiners did. It's like, but you guys are such dicks.
Yeah.
Why couldn't you have said it
Motherfucker,
nicely,
I've been screaming about this shit for.
Yeah, but you guys are rude.
Yeah. Al's Lacrosse had this great tweet, which was, if only we had warned them an additional 12 million times.
Yeah.
If only.
If only we hadn't spent hours and hours and hours in Clubhouse and everywhere else and on Twitter, like,
I took a lot of shit from like my crypto friends because they call me the Peter Schiff of DeFi because I don't want to be the Peter Schiff of DeFi. You know what I mean? Like, because I'm always going on to these podcasts and like going into Twitter Spaces and always talking about the bear case and the negatives and the fundamentals of all this stuff and how weak they are and how they're probably going to go down 99%. And, you know, they just call me the Peter Schiff of DeFi because I love Bitcoin, but I don't like all the other crap.
Yeah, you go into the DeFi spaces, the quote-unquote DeFi, by the way. It's centralized as fuck. And you tell it like it is.
I think I went on Real Vision like 3 times in this last cycle. And the goal was to go on Real Vision and expose their audience to like Bitcoin or Logic and just sort of like slap the Kool-Aid out of their hands and just to say, hey, like, look at this stuff from a first principles point of view. It's not decentralized. It's overvalued. I'm not going to say all of these DeFi things are Ponzi scams, but I am going to tell you why they're way overvalued and that it's a game of insiders and you're likely going to get wrecked because you're overvaluing it, believing narratives. So I don't know if I want to I think I probably will continue that strategy next cycle just to try to engage more with the crypto people to get Bitcoin or Logic out there. Because like the one thing that was really good about the bubble pop last time was that we got Michael Saylor, Corey Clipston, Galloy Money from, or Nicholas Berti from Galloy Money, Robert Breedlove. Like there's a whole bunch of these people that came in kind of like from the shitcoin bubble. They got drawn in from, crypto or NFT, crypto or Ethereum or ICOs, or they just finally started paying attention to it. But in the absolute like routing of those markets, the bear market produced some really significant network effects for Bitcoin. Like people that were great thinkers, good think boys. They had lots of good thinky thoughts, as HODL would say, for Bitcoin. So in a way, like we're gonna like forge another probably like 15 or 20 or maybe 200 amazing thinkers that realize all that shit they were sold as the future of finance was just Ponzi scams and VCs just doing boiler room pump and dumps. And hopefully they will kind of recognize that and start thinking about Bitcoin and maybe become positive network effects for Bitcoin.
Yeah. I mean, we always mint new maximalists. Certainly there's going to be some portion of maximalists, who come out of this, NFT bubble. The NFT guys. The NFT guys are in like La La Land, I think, because they have their pieces are one of ones. And so they're basically just like, mine's still valued at 100,000. I'm not willing to sell it for less than that. It's like, well, there's no liquidity in your market, my dude. It's like, I'm not selling anyway. I'm still rich, You're like, but you're not. It's like, I don't know.
That is you.
That's exactly what happened in the last bubble pop. Was the people that had invested in all these ICOs that never got to launch because the bubble popped, they were stuck with all these illiquid safts, and they're like marking these things at like $100,000 value. Oh, well, I invested 100,000 in this token and my saft says 100,000 on it, even though nobody's going to buy it for me. I still got $100,000 saft. I can't wait for the next bubble to come up and this coin to launch. Well, 95% of those things actually just literally went to zero because it's just not like the price went down. It's just like the bid just completely went away. There was no bid on these things anymore. So I think that is going to happen to a lot of these NFT people. And it's just going to be all of a sudden. It's going to be like, if we continue on this path where we're mimicking the last bear market, another month or two of this is going to be like NFTs are just going to just go to zero. Like most of these like apes and punks and all that stuff, the bid will just disappear. Nobody will want to buy any of that crap anymore.
Fun fact, there was an analysis on the NFT market during the bull cycle, and even during the bull cycle, 87% of NFTs were valued at zero. So
Well,
we're just
true.
moving that number from 87% to 100%, but it's not that big a change.
to strengthen both of your arguments, though, I forget the exact dollar value, but that NFT that Jack Dorsey made of his first ever tweet that sold for millions upon millions of dollars just 2 months ago was listed on an exchange and barely got a bid higher than a 4-figure bid. Like after paying multiple millions of dollars for this. So to everyone's point, you can say it's worth $1 million, but if no one's willing to pay $1 million, it's not really worth $1 million.
Now, conversely, my Bitcoins are worth 10 million apiece because I'm not willing to part with them for any less than that. Okay. And listen,
we're different.
You may
your logic is
the argument and say, well, why isn't this the same argument you're making with Bitcoin? It's because I'm better than you. That's why. You understand that?
it really is that simple.
Yeah.
Take a look in the mirror.
Yeah.
See how your face does not line up with American HODLs and all those differences that you see. That's why you're a piece of shit.
Gentlemen, this was really fun. I'm going to shamelessly, before I give you guys the final word, just remind everyone who is watching, ticket prices for Bitcoin 2023 do go up in price next Friday. So lock in these cheap ticket prices while they're available now. That's all I got. HODL, Brad, I'll let each of you talk over each other in pure Clubhouse fashion to try and shill whatever you need to shill or tell people to follow you wherever you want. But you can only talk at the same time. Fully kidding.
Brad,
Okay, everybody
Brad,
go
you
on to
you go first,
Clubhouse
Brad.
because
You go
Clubhouse
first.
is
Go
where.
ahead.
Well,
Go
sorry,
with your
just
thing.
Here, answer the
the
question,
Clubhouse
You go,
was.
then I'll go.
If,
Then you
if
go, then I'll go.
oh, sorry.
First, you say what you're going to say, then I'll say.
I'm just talking about Clubhouse right now for a second.
Yeah.
If you just give me a second, I just want to
Okay, of course.
chill
Yeah.
Clubhouse. So if you go on to
Absolutely.
Clubhouse, you can come hang out with me.
It was great.
I'm gonna end with. Listen, here's the thing. We're not in a bear market, okay? We're just having fun staying poor. It's very different phenomenon. You know? Think about it. That's it. Hey Brad, do you like to have fun?
I love to have fun.
Cool. Have fun staying poor. Hey P, do you like to have fun?
Nothing makes me happier.
Cool. Have fun staying poor. Hey Q, what about you? You like to have fun?
Nope.
Okay. You should go to Ethereum then.
You heard it here first. My friends, this has been incredible. Thank you so much for joining us. Follow both of these people. Brad's on Twitter. HODL is not on Twitter. You can't follow him.
Yeah, don't
Go fuck
follow me
yourself.
in real life. That's called stalking. I'll shoot you. Okay? Don't do that.
Don't do that.
It's America. We stay strapped, motherfucker.
Guys, thank you again. Tune in tomorrow. Q and I will be back on our bullshit.
Oh, actually, we're going to be joined by Nick Bhatia, so you're not going to want to miss this. He's been putting out some fire threads, fire emails, and just released a couple issues of his latest blog over the weekend. So, special guest tomorrow. Not
Chris,
like
take
you
us out.
guys are not special. We loved you both.
By the way, instead of following me, since I'm not on Twitter, follow Joe Carlasari. You're welcome.
He's incredible.
All right.
Let's do it.